to today's lesson. I believe last time we went into part 1 of this lesson. Today we're going to be going into part 2, and it is the gods of the nations are idols. Now, one of the things we showed in part 1, and actually let me get a scripture. And one of the things we've shown is that, even though we read these gods in the Bible, you'll find that they're very active today. They're still active and incorporated in society. Today we're going to go a little bit further, and we're going to really show that there's nothing new under the sun. And let me just find a scripture. And let's get Colossians chapter 2. Yeah. And let's start from verse. Let me get there with you. Let me see. This is not my Bible. Verse 18. And let's read it.
Colossians chapter 2, verse 18. Let no man beguile you of your reward in a voluntary humility and worshiping of angels.
Right? So the Bible says, let no man beguile you of your reward in involuntary worship of angels. Right? So let no one fool you or trick you into unknowingly, while you think you're serving the Most High, the true God, they've led you to serve another God or an angel. Right? And what we found, going back to part 1 of this lesson, you find in so many different ways they have tricked us into worshiping other spirits, demons, etc., while we were thinking we were worshiping the true God. Right? Let's continue, and let me read the commentary. So in part 1 of this lesson, we learned that there were many gods, lesser powers, with many names, and we went into the prime origin of these gods. In part 2, we will continue to expound and give exposure to these same dynamics. We will also see more of Israel's perpetual disobedience in following after these pagan gods time and time again. It's important that we continue to identify these lesser gods and the worship, rituals, practices associated with them, so that we can make sure that we are not serving them, but serving the Most High only, right? Now, with that being said, let me send you this as well. And we're going to get Exodus chapter 23, sorry. And we're going 20 to 24. Let me send this to you. I'm not sure enough. Right here. All right. Everyone there? All right, let's read. Are you on your Bible back? You okay with that?
So we're in the book of Exodus, chapter 23, verse 20. Behold, I send an angel before thee to keep thee in the way, and to bring thee into the place which I have prepared. Beware of him, and obey his voice. Provoke him not, for he will not pardon your transgressions, for my name is in him.
Right? So we know that as the children of Israel, as they came out of Egypt, the Most High put his angel before them to guide them into the land, right? Now, throughout the scriptures, you'll read about the angel of the Lord. So we know it was the angel of the Lord that appeared before Moses, before the burning bush. This was the same angel that would now lead them into the promised land, right? And we, of course, know who this really was. But let's continue. Go on.
Verse 22. But if thou shalt indeed obey his voice, and do all that I speak, then I will be an enemy unto thine enemies.
Right? So if we obeyed his voice and did hearken unto everything he commanded, knowing that it's coming from the Most High, that the Most High would fight our battles for us. Right? Go on.
And an adversary unto thine adversaries. For mine angel shall go before thee, and bring thee in unto the Amorites, and the Hittites, and the Perizzites, and the Canaanites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, and I will cut them off. Verse 24. Thou shalt not bow down to their gods, nor serve them.
Right? So in order for this agreement to work out, this was the condition. Most High would send his angel to fight for us. This angel would be the mediator between us and him. And hint, because we know in the New Testament who that mediator is. But nonetheless, this angel would serve in this role. But part of this agreement was, if we hearkened unto the Most High and did everything he said, and stayed away from the involuntary or the worshiping of other gods, that's what would make or break this deal. Right? Go on.
Nor do after their works, but thou shalt utterly overthrow them, and quite break down their images.
All right. Let's go to, so that was 23. Let's go jump to 32, verse 1.
Jumping down to verse 31 to 33. And I will set thy bounds from the Red Sea, even unto the sea of the Philistines.
32, verse 1. Sorry about that, brother. And when I saw that Moses delayed.
Okay. So going to Exodus chapter 32, Salakia, from verse 1. When you're there, say Khan. All praises. And when the people saw that Moses delayed to come down out of the mount, the people gathered themselves together unto Aaron, and said unto him, Up, make us gods, which shall go before us. For as for this Moses, the man that brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we wot not what is become of him. And Aaron said unto them, Break off the golden earrings, which are all in the ears of your wives, and of your sons, and of your daughters, and bring them unto me. And all the people brake off the golden earrings, which were in the ears, and brought them unto Aaron. And he received them at their hand, and fashioned it with a graven tool, after he had made it a molten calf. And they said, These be thy gods, O Israel, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. And when Aaron saw it, he built an altar before it. And Aaron made proclamation and said, Tomorrow is a feast to the Lord. And they rose up early on the morrow, and offered burnt offerings, and brought peace offerings. And the people sat down to eat and to drink, and rose up to play. And the Lord said unto Moses, Go get thee down, for thy people, which thou broughtest out of the land of Egypt, have corrupted themselves.
So as soon as Moses, who was the man with wisdom, the man to make sure that we stayed dedicated to the Most High, as soon as he was out of the way, he went up to meet the Most High, received the commandments, he was gone. These men in the camp decided, you know what? We don't know what happened to Moses. Let's build these calves. Let's build these calves. And this is the very thing the Most High refrained them from doing, told them not to do. And the reality is where did you think they learned this from? In Egypt. So while the Most High freed them from the captivity of Egypt, was bringing them into a land of milk and honey, they were looking to bring Egypt out there with them. And, that's something that we got to be careful of, because the Most High has freed us from this world. But yet every now and then, when we're not careful, we're constantly looking back, or we want to bring what we left, we want to bring it back into our lives. And we really got to be careful of that, right? But go on.
Verse 8. They have turned aside quickly out of the way which I commanded thee. They have made them a molten calf, and have worshipped it. and they have sacrificed thereunto it, and said, These be thy gods, O Israel, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt.
What verse?
We're on verse 9.
Go on.
And the Lord said unto Moses, I have seen this people, and behold, it is a stiff-necked people. Now therefore, let me alone, that my wrath may wax hot against them, that I may consume them, and I will make of thee a great nation. And Moses besought the Lord his God, and said, Lord, which doth thy wrath wax hot against thy people, which thou hast brought forth out of the land of Egypt with great power, and with a mighty hand? Wherefore should the Egyptians speak and say, For mischief did he bring them out to slay them in the mountains, and to consume them from the face of the earth? Turn from thy fierce wrath, and repent of this evil against thy people. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel thy servants, to whom thou swarest by thine own self, and saidst unto them, I will multiply your seed as the stars of heaven, and all this land which I have spoken of will I give unto your seed, and they shall inherit it forever. And the Lord repented of the evil which he thought to do unto his people. And Moses turned and went down from the mount, and to the tables of the testimony were in his hand. And the tables were written on both their sides, on one side and on the other they were written. And the tables were the work of God, and the writing was the writing of God, graven upon the tables. And when Joshua heard the noise of the people as they shouted, he said unto Moses, There is a noise of war in the camp. And he said, It is not the voice of them that shout for mastery, neither is it the voice of them that cry for being overcome, but the noise of them that sing do I hear.
Right. Now, one of the points that I forgot to highlight was the fact that the Most High, right, at this point was like, you know what, Moses? I'm about to leave all these guys here in the wilderness. I'm about to make a nation out of you. And we see once again, it was the act of a righteous man that interceded on behalf of the children of Israel to prevent this from happening. Right? And we were talking about last week how when the plague hit the children of Israel in the wilderness, it was Aaron who went out there with incense and made sacrifice to make atonement to stop the plague of death from hitting the camp. Right? Showing you the importance of a righteous man being able to stand even when death is all around. Right? And even in the Psalm says that David says, I've seen 1,000 fall on my right hand and on my left hand, but none of this will touch you. Right? So we have to understand the importance of righteousness. Right? Go on though. Sorry.
Verse 19. And it came to pass, as soon as he came nigh unto the camp, that he saw the calf and the dancing. And Moses' anger waxed hot. And he cast the tables out of his hand, and brake them beneath the mount. And he took the calf which they had made, and burnt it in the fire, and ground it to powder, and strawed it upon the water, and made the children of Israel drink of it.
Right? So Moses had to intervene because through Israel opening up that or building these two calves, they pretty much opened that door for Satan to come back in. Right? So Moses had to be the one to set things back in order. And you'll find that that's a continual theme with the children of Israel. We lose sight of the picture. We get carried away, start serving other gods, go into captivity. Most High will raise up due to our praying and crying and whatnot for deliverance. Oh, you know, Most High, we forgot about the covenant of our forefathers. We'll go back to that in humility. Most High will send a judge. The judge will save us. We're back on one accord. Then that generation dies. Then the next generation raises on up who forgot the ways of the Most High. Continual cycle you'll find throughout the Bible, especially in the book of Judges, in the Old Testament, right? Let's continue though.
Verse 21. And Moses said unto Aaron, What did this people unto thee, that thou mayest brought so great a sin upon them? And Aaron said, Let not the anger of my Lord wax hot. Thou knowest the people that they are set on mischief.
Go on.
For they said unto me, make us gods which shall go before us. For as for this Moses, the man brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we wot not what is become of him.
Go on.
And I said unto them, whosoever hath any gold, let them break it off. So they gave it to me, and then I cast it into the fire, and there came out this calf.
Right? Now, what was wrong with Aaron's stance on this whole matter? He gave in. And why did Aaron give in? You know, that's what he feared. He was more in tune with trying to keep everybody happy rather than making sure the fear of the Most High is intact. And as a leader, you know, sometimes we're faced with that dilemma. We want to keep everybody happy. But the one thing we cannot jeopardize is the integrity of the Most High's work. Right? That's where Aaron had to man up and be like, we're not doing it. But because he was more afraid of the people than he was afraid of the Most High, and all of us, we deal with this dilemma. We're more afraid of people's opinions on how they look at us than we're afraid of how we look in the eyes of the Most High. Right? We'll change this. Borrow this, right? And that's something we got to be careful of. That's something we have to be careful of, right? Because it's so easy, you know, especially for the younger generation where, you know, being cool, being part of the crowd, to some degree, we get pulled into a lot of the things that we know better we shouldn't be entangled with, right? But we got to make sure that we're not overcome through the pressures of the world. Pressures of pleasing people, pressures of, as I said, feeling like, you know, you're missing something if you're not part of the in crowd, right? And especially in these last days, we got to learn to hold firm for the Most High and fear how we look in His eyes compared to how we look in the eyes of men, right? Let's continue, though.
Verse 25. And when Moses saw that the people were naked, for Aaron had made them naked unto their shame among their enemies, then Moses stood in the gate of the camp and said, who is on the Lord's side? Let him come unto me. And all the sons of Levi gathered themselves together unto him. And he said unto them, thus saith the Lord God of Israel, put every man his sword by his side, and go in and out from the gate to gate throughout the camp, and slay every man his brother, and every man his companion, and every man his neighbor. And the children of Levi did according to the word of Moses, and there fell of the people that day 3,000 men.
Right? So about 3,000 men died. But a stand had to be taken. A line had to be crossed. And if Moses did not take this stand, even though we see later on Israel, it finds a way of, you know, being a constant theme, this stirring back up, coming back up among. But if Moses didn't take a stand, this would have continued to plague him. For how long were they out there? What, another 40 years? Well, at least plague them until they made it to the land to send the spies out. So Moses realizes that, you know what? Because think about what this would have cost them. This almost cost them everybody's lives. So for the sake of the 300, and to preserve the rest of the multitude, a tough call had to be made. And as we see Moses, and you can pretty sure imagine, this was hard for the people who had to carry out this judgment. It was hard for them. They had to kill their brothers and sisters. You see what I'm saying?
Yes. That's what you have to look at.
What? Well, I mean, we can say, you know, all praise to the Most High that vengeance is of the Lord. We don't have the same decree.
No, that's what I'm saying.
No. But I think I know where you're going with this, and I'm going there with you. And the fact of the matter is, when it comes to serving the Most High, there's going to be hard choices we have to make. There's going to be relationships that, you know, may get severed based on our fear and the fact that we want to please the Most High. Right? And we have to be willing. We have to be willing to consider those losses. Not that we want those losses, right? But we have to consider, and to be honest, Abraham had to go through the same thing with his father, and we're going to go into that story as well. But, it's hard because some people, it's like, who do we pay more loyalty to? Our parents and the traditions that we've received from our parents? Or the Most High and the truth that the Most High gave us? And a lot of times we can battle with that. But at the end of the day, we thank the Most High for allowing our parents, right? Because they were the vessel for us to come through, but it was the Most High who put the breath of life in their vessel. So the most honor and the Most High will always over trump the honor and respect of our parents. Now, am I saying to disrespect your parents for the Most High? No, I'm not saying that. But in the end of the day, we have to prioritize who gets the love, who gets obedience. The Most High or our parents, right? And what we're praying for is that our parents will lead us into the right obedience of the Most High. But if that's not the case, we still have to hold on to the Most High, right? Let's continue though.
Verse 29. For Moses had said, consecrate yourselves today to the Lord, even every man upon his son, upon his brother, that he may bestow upon you a blessing this day. And it came to pass on the morrow that Moses said unto the people, ye have sinned a great sin, and now I will go up unto the Lord, peradventure I shall make an atonement for your sin. And Moses returned unto the Lord and said, Oh, this people have sinned a great sin, and have made thee gods, made of them gods of gold. Yet now, if thou wilt forgive their sin, and if not, blot me, I pray thee, out of the book which thou hast written. And the Lord said unto Moses, whosoever hath sinned against me, him will I blot out of my book. Therefore, now go, lead the people unto the place of which I have spoken unto thee. Behold, mine angel shall go before thee. Nevertheless, in the day when I will visit their sin upon them. And the Lord plagued the people because they made the calf which Aaron made.
Right, so the people still were punished for this act. But they were able to go on, right? Now there's some things I want to highlight in this story that I forgot to bring up. And read for me, and this is the Targum. For those that don't know the Targum, this is the Pentateuch, the 5 books of Moses. Another version of it, but we're going to read the Jonathan version of it. And just read for me verse 19. Because I want you guys to understand what Moses saw when he came down from the mount, what Moses saw amongst the people. Right? Go on.
So we're in Exodus chapter 32, verse 19 from the Targum. And it was when Moses came near the camp and saw the calf and the instruments of music in the hands of the wicked, who were dancing and bowing before it. And Satan, among them dancing.
Who did he see amongst them?
And Satan among them dancing and
Satan
weeping.
Amongst them dancing. So while they were in this celebration worshiping the calf, it gave a doorway for Satan now to come in the midst of them. And he's enjoying this celebration. Right? And we know the Bible refers to him as the accuser. So he came in, oh yeah, ho ho ho. I got accusations. And he was rejoicing, and Moses saw, this is what Moses was able to see from the spiritual realm of things. He saw Satan in the mix. Now you think about this, right? Because believe it or not, we understand the journey ahead. We're going to go back in through that wilderness like the forefathers did, right? But you could imagine where they went out there as one people, right? One people went out there in the wilderness. All received the same law, statutes, and commandments, right? But the camp is so big that while one side of the camp is in tune with the Most High, there's another side of the camp that's not in tune with the Most High. And we can see that it was obviously we're dealing with multitudes of people where Moses and Joshua was hearing this and saying, hold on, There's war going on in the camp. And Moses is like, no, that's not war. That's partying going on.
Yeah.
Right? So I highlight that. Why? And I say that because, I'm going to say it. I believe we've experienced something of that nature. We got two camps. One spirit in one camp, another spirit in another camp. And we really have to be careful not to allow these things to happen. Because as we saw in this scenario, it cost 300 men their lives. 3,000 men their lives. Right? So we always have to be careful of allowing people to lead us or allowing these idols to come amongst us, because in the end of the day, all they really do is bring forth death when it's all said and done. I see some hands up. Let me get the two hands on, and I'm going to kind of take questions after the lesson after this, so go on. This is 19 on the Targum. Right? Continue to read, though. There's something else that I missed there, though. Continue to read.
Starting from the beginning, Exodus 32, verse 19, from the Targum. And it was when Moses came down near the camp and saw the calf and the instruments of music in the hands of the wicked, who were dancing and bowing before it, and Satan among them dancing and leaping before the people. The wrath of Moses was suddenly kindled, and he cast the tables from his hands and brake them at the foot of the mountain, the holy writing that was on them.
Go on.
However, flew and was carried away into the air of the heavens. And he cried and said, Woe upon the people who have heard at Sinai from the mouth of the Holy One.
Right? So they just heard the thunder and the mountain on fire. All of that they just witnessed. They just came out of that and quickly forgot that. Go on.
Thou shalt not make to thyself an image or figure or any likeness, and yet at the end of 40 days make a useless molten calf.
Go on. Now I want to get the part where it says they were naked. Keep on going. Verse 25, read that.
Verse 25. And Moses saw that the people were naked, for they had been stripped by the hand of Aaron of the holy crown which was upon their head, inscribed and beautified with the great and glorious name, and that their evil report would go forth among the nations of the earth, and they would get to them an evil name unto their generations.
All right. So what happened here? Through them worshiping this idol, right? Or idols, because there's actually two calves that were made. But then by them worshiping them, from the spiritual realm, what also did this do to them as well? What else did this do to them?
They were naked.
Why were they naked?
They lost their crown.
Why? Because sin exposed them. So what nakedness are we speaking about here? They were spiritually naked. Right? And through this, their enemies, right? We understand that the enemies, talking about the other nations, right? But how would their enemies understand that they were naked now? For instance, they're in the wilderness all by themselves, right? So what enemies are being spoken about here? The spirits, the demons, right? Now, one of the things that I forgot to bring the testament of Levi, because in the testament of Levi, it tells you that every evil spirit is against the children of Israel. So their enemies, the enemies is being spoken about, talking about these spirits that are looking to destroy the children of Israel. And that's why Ephesians chapter 6 talks about we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but spirits, principalities, rulers of wickedness. That's what Moses was speaking about here. Right? So they lost their garments, because we understand, following the Most High, especially after baptism, we receive those white garments, those spiritual garments. Through sin, we can lose those garments. And when we see here through them worshiping the calf, this is what took place here. This is the nakedness that's being spoken about here, right? Let's continue though. And we're going to go into the book of Jasher. And let me read the commentary. So after the exodus from Egypt, the Most High commanded the children of Israel explicitly on several occasions not to worship the gods of the Egyptians. Before Israel entered into Canaan, the Most High also commanded them not to worship the gods that were being worshipped in Canaan. This commandment was given to Moses by the Most High to relate to the children of Israel. However, with Moses being absent for a time and his whereabouts unaccounted for, the children of Israel, or the Israelites, then proposed themselves to make golden idols to be masters over them. This would become a common theme with Israel throughout history, but this is one of the first instances of mankind disobeying. Or better yet, let me read it again. But is this one of the first instances of mankind disobeying the Most High and worshiping other gods? And you'll find the answer to that is no. It's not the first instance, as some may believe. Let's take a look at the very beginning of creation to see whether or not this is the case, right? So now we're going to go before the flood. We're going to the book of Jasher. For those that are saying the book of Jasher, Deacon, I've never heard of the book of Jasher. Well, 1 Samuel, I believe, chapter 10, tells us, are not these things written in the book of Jasher? So in order to understand these things that were written, we got to go into the book of Jasher. So let's go into the book of Jasher, and let's get some more to see what was going on before the flood.
Once again, for that reference, it's going to be 2 Samuel 1 and 18, and Joshua 10 and 13 that references the book of Jasher.
Thank you, brother.
So we're in the book of Jasher, chapter 2, reading verses 1 to 9. And it was in the 130th year of the life of Adam upon the earth that he again knew Eve his wife, and she conceived and bare a son in his likeness and in his image. And she called his name Seth, saying, because God has appointed me another seed in the place of Abel, for Cain has slain him. And Seth lived 105 years, and he begot a son, and Seth called the name of his son Enosh, saying, because in that time the sons of man began to multiply, and to afflict their souls and hearts by transgression and rebelling against God. And it was in the days of Enosh that the sons of men continued to rebel and transgress against God, to increase the anger of the Lord against the sons of men. And the sons of men went, and they served other gods, and they forgot the Lord who had created them in the earth.
Right? They forgot the Most High. So they start worshiping other gods, and through them worshiping other gods, they began to forget the Most High. Let's see what the Most High started to do.
And in those days the sons of men made images of brass and iron, wood and stone, and they bowed down and served them. And every man made his god, and they bowed down to them. And the sons of men forsook the Lord all the days of Enosh.
Go on.
And his children, and the anger of the Lord was kindled on account of their works and abominations which they did in the earth. Verse 6, and the Lord caused the waters of the river of Gihon to overwhelm them, and he destroyed and consumed them, and he destroyed the third part of the earth. And notwithstanding this, the sons of men did not turn from their evil ways, and their hands were yet extended to do evil in the sight of the Lord. And in those days there was neither sowing nor reaping in the earth, and there was no food for the sons of men, and the famine was very great in those days. And the seed which they sowed in those days in the ground became thorns, thistles, and briars. For from the days of Adam was this declaration concerning the earth, of the curse of God which he cursed the earth, on account of the sin which Adam sinned before the Lord. And it was when men continued to rebel and transgress against God, and to corrupt their ways, that the earth also became corrupt.
All right. Now, bear with me. I'm trying to find, I want to touch a little bit more on this. I'm trying to remember what chapter this was in. Yeah.
Chapter 4.
Book 4? Is that it that we have there? What was it, book 4? Yeah.
Book 4.
Yeah.
Chapter 10 and 11.
You have it there on your phone?
No.
Yeah, let's just pull it up, because I bookmarked this like 3 times and I still can't find it, right? But we see, they started to build idols, right? Through them building idols, the Most High started to cause affliction upon the earth, right? Now, there's something I want to highlight this because you guys know me. There's always a lesson within the lesson, right? Let's get that. You found it?
Yeah.
All right, let's go.
So we're in the Clementine Recognitions, Book 4, chapter 10 to 11. But when men leading a life void of distress began to think that the continuance of good things was granted them, not by divine bounty, but by the chance of things, and to accept as a depth of nature, not as a gift of God's goodness, their enjoyment without any exertion of the lights of the divine complacence. Men being led by these things into contrary and impious thoughts, came at last at the instigation of idleness, to think that the life of God's was theirs by nature, without any labors or merits on their part. Hence they go from bad to worse, to believe that neither is the world governed by the providence of God, nor is there any place for virtues, since they knew that they themselves possess the fullness of ease and delights, without the assignment of any works previously, and without any labors.
Right, so before the flood, the Most High allowed creation to produce for man. Right? So through the abundance of them having everything at their access, they didn't have to really work for this. Through this abundance, it gave way to idleness. And then idleness started to give way to, give me a second, bro. Idleness started to give away now to creating of idols. So what the Most High started to do is he started to cause the earth not to produce crops. So even though this was prophesied that to Adam, that this would be the curse of Adam, the Most High still had mercy with mankind. But through that mercy, through that abundance, as I said, we took it for granted. We never understood that this goodness was determined by our obedience of serving him. So the more we got abundance, the more it turned us away from the Most High. So the Most High said, okay, you know what? We're going to switch this around. Let's make the earth stop producing crops. Hopefully, they will get the message and repent and come back to serving me. Isn't that not what the Most High did to the children of Israel? So the Most High brought us out of Egypt, raised us on high, gave us without care. But then the Bible tells us that Jezreel kicked against the Most High. How through having so much, being so blessed, it caused us to be ungrateful. We took for granted the things the Most High gave us, and we didn't remember that these things came due to our due to our obedience towards the Most High. So, like before the flood, the Most High started causing famines. Same thing he started to do in Israel. He started sending the nations to rob Israel. But through this, continue to read, because there's a point you missed there. Continue to read.
Con. Going a few sentences up. Without the assignment of any works previously, and without any labors, were treated as the friends of God. Jump into chapter 11. Suffering salutary. By the most righteous judgment of God, therefore, labors and afflictions are assigned as a remedy to men languishing in vanity of such thoughts.
Right? So the Most High sent it to those before the flood. He sent this as a remedy. Hopefully they would fix up their ways so he wouldn't have to send the deluge. He did this to Israel where he sent this as a remedy so that we would repent and come back to serving him. Go on.
And when labor and tribulations came upon them, they were excluded from the place of the lights and amity.
Go on.
Also the earth began to produce nothing to them without labor. And when then men's thoughts being turned in them, they were warned to seek the aid of their Creator, and by prayers and vows to ask for divine protection. And thus it came to pass that the worship of God, which they had neglected by reason of their prosperity.
Right? So by reason of their prosperity, and you know how it goes. We talk about this all the time. When things are going well in life, Who's praising the Most High? But when things get a little bit rough, that's when you find us back on our knees saying, Father, Father, please, help us. And this has been, since the beginning of time, man has been operating in this mindset. Right? But this is why the Most High will send those scenarios in your life where, we always talk about we take 2 steps forward, 5 steps back. Because the Most High is saying, no, you ain't going far without me. Go on.
Which they neglected by reason of their prosperity. They recovered through their adversity and their thoughts towards God, which indulgence and perverted affliction corrected. So therefore, the divine providence, seeing that this was more profitable to man, removed from them the ways of benignity and abundance, and as being hurtful, and introduced the way of vexation and tribulation.
Right? And that's the same thing that we're going through in this current day. This is why the Most High robbed us and stripped us naked, in order that we would be provoked to jealousy, seeing everybody else prosper but us. And that through being provoked, it would lead us to seek back our God and get right back with Him. Right? Let's continue though.
So we're still in the book of Jasher. We're just jumping down to chapter 11, reading verses 13 to 61. And in the 50th year of the life of Abraham, son of Terah, Abram came forth from the house of Noah and went to his father's house. And Abram knew the Lord, and he went in his ways and instructions, and the Lord his God was with him. And Terah his father was in those days still captain of the host of King Nimrod, and he still followed strange gods. And Abram came to his father's house, and saw 12 gods standing there in their temples. And the anger of Abram was kindled when he saw the images in his father's house. And Abram said...
So we're going into, and us who, if you ever read the story, we understand that Abraham's now coming into the time where he's now getting to know the ways of the Most High. Right? And I'm highlighting this because, I believe all of us, we go through this phase where we realize, we've been serving idols all this time. We've been lied to. We're upset. We're trying to wake up everybody around us to say, hey, wake up, wake up. What we're serving is the devil. And sometimes that comes out in anger. Right? We're so angry that we've been lied to, been manipulated, all of that. And Abraham's going through that same phase now. And he's confronting his dad. Why? Because his dad was the high priest who had a chamber for Nimrod, with all these different gods. They had 12 main gods, and then they had lesser gods. Right? A room full of idols, though. Go on.
Verse 17. And Abraham said, as the Lord liveth, these images shall not remain in my father's house. So shall the Lord who created me do unto them, if in 3 days' time I do not break them all.
Right? Does this sound familiar? Does it sound like some of us?
3 days.
I'm about to throw out this Christmas tree. I'm going to throw out this pork. Everything's about to throw out this house. The problem is we don't own the house. Go on.
Verse 18. And Abraham went from them, and his anger burned within him. And Abraham hastened and went from the chamber to his father's outer court. And he found his father sitting in the court, and all his servants with him. And Abraham came and sat before him. And Abraham asked his father, saying, Father, tell me, where is God who created the heaven and the earth, and all the sons of men upon the earth, and who created thee and me? And Terah answered his son Abraham and said, Behold, those who created us are all with us in the house.
Right? So, over there. What kind of question you asked me? You've seen them since you're a child. You know who these gods are. You know what I mean? So he's like, where is this coming from? But not understanding that there's something on Abraham. There's a spirit now that's moving on Abraham, that's provoking him to ask these questions because he's looking for the truth. Go on.
And Abraham said to his father, My Lord, show them to me, I pray thee. And Terah brought Abraham into the chamber of the inner court. And Abraham saw, and behold, the whole room was full of gods of wood and stone, 12 great images, and others less than they without number. And Terah said to his son, Behold, these are they which made all thou seest upon the earth, and which created me and thee and all mankind. And Terah bowed down to his gods, and he then went away from them, and Abraham his son went away with him. And when Abraham gone from them, he went to his mother and sat before her. And he said to his mother, Behold, my father has shown me those who made heaven and earth, and all the sons of men. Now therefore hasten and fetch a kid from the flock, and make of it savory meat, that I may bring it to my father's gods as an offering for them to eat. Perhaps I may thereby become acceptable to them. And his mother did so, and she fetched a kid, and made savory meat therefore, and brought it to Abraham. And Abraham took the savory meat from his mother, and brought it before his father's gods.
Right? So even though Abraham was questioning, the gods in his house, he went to his father. His father said, hey, they're right there. Something in him said, hey, you know what? It's my father. I'm going to trust him. But let me put these guys to the test. Let's see if they eat, if they get hungry. So he said, okay, you know what? We're going to serve them an offering, and let's see how this goes. So he had his mom. You know how we do. He had his mom cook up a meal. Said, Mom, go fetch me two kids out the garden. Or, she cooked them up for him. He brings them, right? Lays out the meal right before the God. Go on.
And Abraham took the savory meat from his mother, and brought it before his father's gods. And he threw nigh to them, that they might eat. And Terah his father did not know of it. And Abraham saw on the day when he was sitting amongst them, that they had no voice, no hearing, no motion, and not one of them could stretch forth his hand to eat. And Abraham mocked them, and said, Surely the savory meat that I prepared has not pleased them, or perhaps it was too little for them, and for that I reasoned they would not eat. Therefore tomorrow I will prepare a fresh savory meat, better and more plentiful than this, in order that I may see the result.
Right? So he said, all right, we're going to try this again. Make a bigger pot this time, right? Maybe I, forgot the scotch bonnet pepper or something. Something's missing, right? Go on.
And it was on the next day that Abraham directed his mother concerning the savory meat. And his mother rose and fetched 3 fine kids from the flock, and she made of them some excellent savory meat, such as her son was fond of, and she gave it to her son Abraham, and Terah his father did not know of it. And Abraham took the savory meat from his mother, and brought it before his father's gods into the chamber, and he came nigh unto them, that they might eat, and he placed it before them. And Abraham sat before them all day, thinking perhaps they might eat. And Abraham viewed them, and behold, they had neither voice nor hearing, nor did one of them stretch forth his hand to the meat to eat. And in the evening of the day, in that house, Abraham was clothed with the Spirit of God. And he called out and said, Woe unto my father and this wicked generation, whose hearts are all inclined to vanity.
Right? So what fell upon Abraham? Spirit, right? Holy Spirit fell upon him. And, we can say that this was in the beginning of Abraham fully walking before the Most High. Right? And many of us, we were in this same dilemma. We were at a point where we're like, we want to get serious with our walk. We want to get to know the Most High. COVID kind of, for some of us, COVID was that opportunity, so to speak, right? But nonetheless, we were all at that point where we're like, we want to get to know the Most High. And we start searching, right? And, Abraham, read that part again. Sorry, read that last part again.
Verse 32, And he called out and said, Woe unto my father and this wicked generation.
Right? Now I remember what I said. Thank you, brother. But it was something that hit us. I believe the same spirit hit us to make to provoke us, to make us see that, there's something not right about this. Something's not adding up here. And that was the spirit that was leading us down that rabbit hole to eventually find what we call today the truth. All of us, experience something of that nature, right? I know for me, when I started to come into the truth, I remember we had a guest speaker, Douglas Jacoby. I'll never forget his name. We had a guest speaker at our church. And the topic came up where, who are the children of Israel? And I was like, what are the coincidences that I'm here today? Right? Because I'm just starting to get into the children of Israel, the truth as we know it. And this guest speaker, he's touching on it. Now, by the end of the sermon, what was very clear to me was that the children of Israel could be anybody but black people. Could have been anybody else but us. And that was very clear to me, and it was like, there's something going on here. But then on top of that, this guy has an author of a book where in his book, he says, Ham, the progenitor of the dark races, but not the Negroes. So he has this in a book he published and knows this information. So I'm saying, hold on, he's lying. Something's going, that was that light bulb that went off. And ever since that, it was like, okay, we need to start questioning everything that's going on here. Because we realize it's not about edifying people. It's about keeping us confused. And ever since that, I had question after question after week after week. And I kind of had to calm down because, I was like Abraham about trying to find a way to bring that same ratchet to attack some of the idols that were in the temple. But, obviously it didn't work out that way. Clearly it didn't work out that way for Abraham as well. But, that was the mindset. And I said we have all experienced that. But it was the spirit that pricked us to make us say, hey, let me start questioning these things, right? And that's before we were baptized, showing you that the Spirit was leading us. Wisdom says, I cry out, right? She's constantly crying, sons of men. How long will you love or stay away? Well, you should love simplicity, right? Yeah. But how long shall you strive for this? Or how long should you love simplicity? Yeah, she does say that. How long you should love simplicity and vanity? But she's crying out, saying, hey, I'm here. But we were the few that were like, yeah, man, I see something's up here, right? And eventually, through that discernment, it led us to where we are today, right? Let's continue, though.
Still on verse 32, whose hearts are all inclined to vanity, who serve these idols of wood and stone, which can neither eat, smell, hear, nor speak, who have mouths without speech, eyes without sight, ears without hearing, hands without feeling, and legs which cannot move. Like them are those that made them and trust in them. And when Abraham saw all these things, his anger was kindled against his father, and he hastened and took a hatchet in his hands, and came unto the chamber of the gods, and he broke all his father's gods. And when he had done breaking the images, he placed a hatchet in the hand of the great God, which was there before them, and he went out.
Right? So he knew what he was doing, right? But he tried to run out of that room real quick. Go on.
And Terah his father came home, for he had heard at the door the sound of striking of the hatchet. So Terah came into the house to know what this was about. And Terah, having heard the noise of the hatchet in the room of images, ran to the room to the images, and he met Abraham going out. And Terah entered the room and found all the idols fallen down and broken, and the hatchet in the hand of the largest, which was not broken. And the savory meat which Abraham his son had made was still before them. And when Terah saw this, his anger was greatly kindled, and he hastened and went from the room to Abraham. And he found Abraham his son still sitting in the house, and he said to him, what is this work thou hast done to my gods? And Abraham answered Terah his father, and he said, Not so, my lord, for I besought the savory meat before them. And when I came nigh to them, which the meat that they might eat, they all at once stretched forth their hands to eat before the great one, and put forth his hand to eat. And the large one saw their works, and they did before him, and his anger was violently kindled against them. And he went and took the hatchet that was in the house, and came to them, and broke them all. And behold, the hatchet is yet in his hand, as thou seest.
Right, so we see Abraham, he's trying to use some cunningness here, right? He's trying to outsmart his dad, and, I could imagine, your mom catching him like, no, I didn't do it. Like, you're trying to out-talk your way out of this. So he came up with a good story. Said, hey, the big God, got mad at the other gods and destroyed all of them. Right? He's he's the top dog, the top God, should I say. Go on.
And Terah's anger was kindled against his son Abram when he spoke this. And Terah said to Abraham his son in his anger, What is this tale that thou hast told?
Yeah, what kind of foolishness is this?
Thou speakest lies to me.
Go on.
Is there in these gods spirit, soul, or power to do all that thou hast told me?
Right? So he's even confessing that these ain't no gods. How you going to tell me, the big God, when I made the big God? I know the wood I made the big God out of. Right? So what kind of foolishness. But by him not even listening to the words coming out of his mouth, he couldn't even realize what he's saying is foolishness. You see what I'm saying? But it was through this dialogue where Abraham saw this opportunity to pull out this something that what his father was saying made no sense. Because if these are no gods and have no power, why are we worshiping them? Why? Go on.
Are they not wood and stone? And have I not myself made them? And canst thou speak such lies, saying that the large God that was with them smote them? Is it thou that didst place the hatchet in his hands, and then sayest he smote them all? And Abraham answered his father and said to him, And how canst thou then serve these idols in whom there is no power to do anything? Can those idols in which thou trustest deliver thee? Can they hear thy prayers when thou callest unto them? Can they deliver thee from the hands of the enemies? Or will they fight thy battles for thee against thy enemies? That thou shouldest serve wood and stone, who can neither speak nor hear? And now surely it is not good for thee, nor for the sons of men that are connected with thee, to do these things. Are you so silly, so foolish, or so short of understanding, that you will serve wood and stone, and do after this manner? And forget the Lord God who made heaven and earth, and who created you in the earth, and thereby bringing a great evil upon your souls in this matter, by serving stone and wood. Did not our fathers in the days of old sin in this matter? And the Lord God of the universe brought the waters of the flood upon them and destroyed the whole earth.
All right? And really just to show you that the gods that were being served were the same gods before the flood. Right? Nothing new under the sun. Even when the children of Israel came out of Egypt and were being led by Joshua, Joshua was like, you guys can serve the gods that your fathers served on the other side of the flood. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Right? So it's really the same deities before the flood. Right? It's really nothing new under the sun. Go on.
Verse 47. How can you continue to do this and serve gods of wood and stone, who cannot hear nor speak or deliver you from oppression, thereby bringing down the anger of the God of the universe upon you? Now therefore, my father, refrain from this, and bring not evil upon thy soul and the souls of thy household. And Abraham hastened and sprang from before his father, and took the hatchet from his father's largest idol, with which Abraham broke it and ran away. And Terah, seeing all that Abraham had done, hastened to go from his house, and went to the king. And he came before Nimrod, and stood before him. And he bowed down to the king, And the king said, What dost thou want?
Right? So we see that the response of the father was to turn his son in, to report his son. Right? And the Bible talks about this father against, son against father, mother-in-law, it talks about this. But one of the things that we can see is that Abraham taking a stand for the Most High made him a threat, an enemy of those that were controlling the world and the religion of the world during that time. Right? Because we understand during that time, Nimrod was in control of the known world at that time, and Terah was his high priest. So with Abraham bringing this truth now of these gods, there's no power in them, it was a threat to the established structure. Right? And to be honest, as this truth is reemerging, it's a threat to the establishing structure. Talking about the overseeing, the hierarchies of the churches. It's a threat to them. And they are going to do and are doing everything to fight against this truth that's being brought into earth. Right? They try to stop. When Malcolm X said, hey, there's going to come a time where you black people who don't know who you are, that you are the dry bones, you are the prodigal son, in the last days, you will wake up to the spiritual understanding. They were trying to prevent this forever. Right? And to show you how far this goes, anybody ever watched the original Planet of the Apes? What do you think that movie's about? It's about it's what they know, that eventually these people will rule under Christ. And their way of showing that mocking us is to show us as apes ruling the world. But at the end of the movie, what do you see? You see the Statue of Liberty on its side, catch up like this, showing you they know at the end how this is going down. So they did everything to try to prevent what the Most High has already prophesied. But we know what the Most High has put out ain't coming back void. Right? Let's continue though.
And he said, I beseech thee, my Lord, to hear me. Now 50 years back a child was born to me, and thus has he done to my gods, and thus has he spoken. And now therefore, my Lord and King, send for him, that he may come before thee, and judge him according to the law, that we may be delivered from his evil. And the king sent 3 men of his servants, and they went and brought Abram before the king, and Nimrod. And all his princes and servants were that day sitting before him, and Terah sat also before them. And the king said to Abram, What is this that thou hast done to thy father and to his gods? And Abram answered the king in the words that he spoke to his father, and he said, The large God that thou was with them in the house did to them what thou hast heard.
Right? So he's sticking with that story. Go on.
And the king said to Abram, Had thy power to speak and to eat and to do as thou hast said?
Right? So even Nimrod had to acknowledge this as well. Right? Go on.
And Abram answered the king, saying, And if there be no power in them, why do thou serve them, and cause the sons of men to err through thy follies? Dost thou imagine that they can deliver thee, or do anything small or great, that thou shouldest serve them? And why wilt thou not sense the God of the whole universe, who created thee, and in whose power it is to kill and keep alive? O foolish, simple, and ignorant king, woe unto thee forever. I thought that thou wouldest teach thy servants the upright way, but thou hast not done this, but hast filled the whole earth with thy sins, and the sins of thy people.
He has filled the whole earth with this sin. Right? Go on.
But hast filled the whole earth with thy sins, and the sins of thy people who have followed thy ways. Dost thou not know, or hast thou not heard, that this evil which thou doest, our ancestors sinned therein in the days of old, and the eternal God brought the waters of the flood upon them, and destroyed them all. and also destroyed the whole earth on their account. And wilt thou and thy people rise up now and do like?
Go on. Go on.
And do like unto this work, in order to bring down the anger of the Lord God of the universe, and to bring evil upon thee and the whole earth. Now therefore, put away this evil deed which thou doest, and serve the God of the universe as thy soul is in his hands, and then it will be well with thee. And if thy wicked heart will not hearken to my words, to cause thee to forsake thy evil ways, and to serve the eternal God, then wilt thou die in shame in the later days, thou, thy people, and all who are connected with thee, hearing thy words or walking in thy evil ways. And when Abraham had ceased speaking before the king and princes, Abraham lifted up his eyes to the heavens and said, the Lord seeth all the wicked, and he will judge them.
All right. Let me read the commentary. So we see after Adam and Eve had their third son, mankind began to rebel against the Most High to serve other gods and make idols. So from the beginning of creation, idolatry and the serving of lesser gods was prevalent and was known as a transgression, right? So we know that this sin was known. This didn't come just through Moses, right? So we see that this commandment was not something that started with Moses, but was understood from the very beginning of time. The sins of Adam and Eve started a ripple effect and a snowball of degeneration in the earth that has only waxed worse and worse up until our present day. The Most High's law was passed down through the lineage of Adam from Seth, or Adam to Seth, all the way down to Noah, whom taught Abraham. But even after the great judgment that came with the deluge, we see that mankind went right back to serving the lesser gods after the flood during the time of Nimrod, because of Abraham's commitment to serving the Most High only. The covenant was made with him, and 100 of years later, this covenant, it was what Moses was teaching the children of Israel after Exodus from Egypt, right? But we see that after the flood, Nimrod, seeing that he had a prominent position, but Nimrod's job, who was Nimrod really working for? Who was he working for? He was working for Satan, right? It was his job after the flood to once again open up those factories that the fallen angels, produced before the flood. And what I'm trying to say is basically it was his job to reintroduce the world back into worshiping other gods. Yes, brother, you want to say that?
I would ask this question.
Yes.
Was there sin here before Adam and Eve came?
Was there sin here before Adam and Eve came? No. No.
Was Satan here before Adam and Eve?
I was going to say Satan actually got kicked out of heaven because of Adam and Eve. Right? And we could go more into where I'm getting that from, because I always like to make people see the records where those things are coming from, right? But we know that it was through Satan, envy of Satan, where death came into the world, right? So,
Pride is the beginning of sin.
right? So we see that after the flood, Nimrod now taking that lead role would start now introduce back the world back into this paganism of serving other gods, right? And how Abraham now would be used to fight against that battle of what Nimrod was doing. Him and his offspring would be used to fight against, to restore what the Most High, the truth that the Most High had in the beginning. Let's go Judges chapter 10, and let's go 6 to 7. And we're just going to go through stuff real quick, because we got a lot to cover. Go on.
So the book of Judges, chapter 10, verse 6. And the children of Israel did evil again in the sight of the Lord, and served Balaam, and Ashereth, and the gods of Syria, and the gods of Zidon, and the gods of Moab, and the gods of the children of Ammon, and the gods of the Philistines.
Right, so we start serving every god. I don't think there's a god we left out. Go on. Right?
And forsook the Lord, and served not him. And the anger of the Lord was hot against Israel, and he sold them into the hands of the Philistines and into the hands of the children of Ammon.
Right? Now, one of the things we have to understand is that by keeping the Most High's laws, like keeping the law equals peace. As long as we kept the Most High's laws, we had peace. The minute we forsook the Most High's laws, chaos, war, all those things happen, right? So the law is actually peace, right? Go on.
So we're jumping down to verse 10, going to verse 16. And the children of Israel cried unto the Lord, saying, We have sinned against thee, both because we have forsaken our God, and also served Balaam. And the Lord said unto the children of Israel, Did not I deliver you from the Egyptians, and from the Amorites, and from the children of Ammon, and from the Philistines, the Zidonians, also the Amalekites, and the Maonites did oppress you, and ye cried to me, and I delivered you out of their hand. Yet have ye forsaken me, and served other gods, wherefore I will deliver you no more.
Right? And this really shows the ungratefulness of the children of Israel. Right? Because, and think about it. We are the offspring of them. Right? We ask the Most High, we pray for something. The Most High grants us whatever we prayed for. Believe it, by next day we kind of lost that gratefulness. Right? Give it a week. You'll go back to default mode. So we constantly have to remind ourselves, and this is the importance of why praying 3 times a day, making sure we're praying, because it's us showing our gratefulness towards the Most High. Well, we see, oh, Most High save us, the Most High save us, we go back, we worship another God. Oh, Most High save us. Constantly a habit of showing ungratefulness for everything the Most High has done. Right? What more can he do for us? Go on.
Verse 14. Go and cry unto the gods which ye have chosen. Let them deliver you in the time of your tribulation. And the children of Israel said unto the Lord, We have sinned. Do thou unto us whatsoever seemeth good unto thee. Deliver us only, we pray thee, this day.
Right? So even if you have to punish us, Most High, just deliver us, please. We'd rather fall in your hands than in their hands. Let's get 1 Kings.
Last verse.
Yeah, last verse. Sorry, go on.
Last verse. And they put away the strange gods from among them, and served the Lord, and his soul was grieved for the misery of Israel.
All right, let's go 1 Kings chapter 11, verse 1.
1 Kings chapter 11, verse 1. But King Solomon loved many strange women, together with the daughter of Pharaoh.
Right, so, and I'm pretty sure King David probably gave him a heads up about this. But if not, well, Tobit came after him, but it would have been nice to have the wisdom that Tobit got, or Tobit left Tobias.
Judah gave it one.
Right? Or even what Judah said. But nonetheless, yeah, because Judah did warn them about the women thing.
Yeah.
Keep on going, though.
With the daughter of Pharaoh, women of the Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Zidonians, and Hittites, of the nations concerning which the Lord said unto the children of Israel, Ye shall not go into them, neither shall they come in unto you.
Go on.
For surely they will turn away your heart after their gods. Solomon clave unto these in love. And he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines, and his wives turned away his heart. For it came to pass, when Solomon was old, that his wives turned away his heart after other gods, and his heart was not perfect with the Lord his God, and as was the heart of David his father. For Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Zidonians, and after Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. And Solomon did evil in the sight of the Lord, and went not fully after the Lord, as did David his father. Then Solomon built a high place for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, in the hill that is before Jerusalem, and Molech, the abomination of the children of Ammon. And likewise did he for all his strange wives, which burnt incense, and sacrificed unto their gods. And the Lord was angry with Solomon, because his heart was turned from the Lord God of Israel, which had appeared unto him twice.
All right. So let's look at Solomon for a second, right? Because this is really key for us men to understand. What turned away Solomon's heart from following the Most High?
Lust.
Strange women. Women. Holy power women. Right? Now, who had wisdom like Solomon? Nobody. So if anybody would have the wisdom on how to deal with women, it should have been Solomon. But really, this is also, a tribute to the power that women have, that they could even take down the wisest of us all. So let me put some honor on that, right? But this is why it's important as men, we learn to lead. And lead with conviction, right? Any of you guys listen to Blog Talk this week? All right, Blog Talk, there was a guy that called in, and he was giving his testimony. And his testimony is basically, hey, I've been following the Most High for 6 years, but there's still Christmas going on in my house. And the other's like, okay, there's something wrong here, brother. And, the more we examine it, we realize he's not in control of his house. In fact, his wife is the one really running the house. And through his wife running the house, she's allowing these idols, the Christmas tree, which we know is an ancient Chaldean idol, she's allowing all these things in the house. And him not taking the stand to say, honey, okay, hey, if you want to do your Christmas thing, you can do that, but not in the house, and not reaching that agreement, it's causing him to constantly be pulled back into this involuntary worship of the Nimrod stick, the Christmas tree. Right? And you see it in other scenarios I'll tell you where you see this as well. You see this in other scenarios where the wife is using the kids as the leverage to get the husband in line. So it's like, hey, well, if we ain't doing Christmas, you ain't in this house. You ain't seeing these kids. You have scenarios like that. And it's I can't give you the answer for every scenario, but in all those scenarios, men, we got to find a way to kind of get back some form of control. And if not, then we will be led rather than us doing the leading. You see what I'm saying? Because we know how the Most High designed it from the beginning. And we also understand, if we look at that dynamic, because that's the same dynamic that happened in the garden, where now Eve now is in control now. And through her being in control, it opened up Adam now to lose all his dominion. So the Most High desired men to be the shepherds. We're supposed to be the leaders, and we have to have enough, I'm going to say enough, for lack of better words, I'm going to say, maybe I'm not going to say that.
Zeal.
But some zeal. Some zeal and some conviction to take that stand and say, I don't know about y'all, but in this house, we're going to serve the Most High. Because if we don't do that, the door is open for Satan to come in and destroy. And party in the house. And party with destroy everybody. When it's all said and done, the kids are affected, the wife's affected, the whole house is turned upside down. So as men, we have to have conviction to say, you know what, honey, I understand, but I need you to trust me and follow me. And if she's a woman of the Most High, we go to the scriptures and we show her according to the Most High, this is actually, what was instructed. Let's try it. Right? And let's see how the Most High moves in this marriage, in this home, once we align ourselves. Right? Because we can't be like, you know what, I'm the man. With the society and the way how the society has pushed the feminine movement, everything has to be based on this is what the Most High is requiring us to do. Let's get in line with the Most High. Right? Sorry, you want to say something? We were all.
I have children, and just to see the look on their face that Christmas morning opening their gifts, right? Until one day I ran across something. We're talking about Christmas.
Mhm.
So I went and I researched it, and then I get to find out where Christmas actually came from.
Mhm.
And I had to repent because I'm saying, oh my God, all this time I've been doing this and not knowing that it was so wrong. Because even the church that I was going to, even then, even the pastor himself had the Christmas tree in his house.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So I didn't thought there was nothing wrong with it. Right? But after I went across this, and before I got to it, I actually found out.
Mhm.
I had just went and bought a Christmas tree for $350.
Mhm.
A 7-foot tall white Christmas tree already decorated.
Mhm.
Okay? When I found out about that, in time I already used it twice.
Mhm.
So you know what I've done? I just take it out, put it in a box, and put it outside.
Mhm.
And then I sat my family down. I have a talk with them. This is it for us. No more Christmas.
Mhm.
And did you know, thanks be to the Almighty God, nobody wrote it. They all understood.
Mhm.
Okay? And from then on, no Christmas dinner, no gifts,
I can understand.
and that's it.
God, right?
God.
And you know, I'm gonna say the beauty of the Most High, because the Most High has a whole heap of feasts. And really and truly, it's really, we're transitioning from the holy days or holidays, because I and Y are interchangeable. So holy days are really holidays of the world, and now coming under the holy days of the Most High, right? So we have a time where we give gifts, and that's Purim. So no longer we'll have Christmas dinner, but guess what? We'll have a Purim dinner at my house. Everybody's welcome. Come by, right? And that's how we help everybody to kind of come over and understand the importance of what they're keeping, what they're doing, right? So there's a transition, right? Sorry, go on.
Verse 10 and 11.
Huh?
Verse 10 and 11.
Go on.
Verse 10. And had commanded him concerning this thing, that he should not go after other gods, but he kept not that which the Lord commanded. Wherefore the Lord said unto Solomon, for as much as this is done for thee, and thou hast not kept my covenant and my statutes, which I have commanded thee, I will surely rend the kingdom from thee, and will give it to thy servant.
All right, so we know due to this, it really started a ripple effect, and this is where we went from, because during the time of Solomon was the time of the blessing. Remember Moses said, it shall come to pass, the blessing, then the curse. So during the time of Solomon was the blessing. After the sin of Solomon, it's starting to go into the curse, right? Because right after Solomon, the kingdom was split. You had Israel, you had the southern kingdom, and you had the northern kingdom, right? And Israel has never been the same since the sin of Solomon. Let's get some of the gods he was dealing with. Kamesh. Let's read Kamesh.
Chemosh. Chemosh was a national deity of the Moabites, whose name mostly likely meant destroyer, subduer, or fish god.
Right? Fish god. We heard about the fish god. Last time we did this lesson, we talked about a different fish god. It's really the same god, just a different name. But how did we used to worship the fish god? Oh my gosh, Israel, your memories. I'm starting to really believe this now. You guys definitely are the children. No, I'm joking. But we looked at, for instance, when you look at stickers on people's cars, you see the fish symbol with Jesus in it. That fish is going into Dagon as well as Kamesh, because they are fish deities. Another celebration where we used to celebrate Kamesh, right? Even the Pope's hat goes back to the fish god, right? Another way we used to do it is Good Friday, where all we used to eat is fish. This was also another way we used to involuntarily worship Kamesh and Dagon, right? Now you'll find it's really the same God, just different names, right? Depending on the civilization or whatnot. But it's the same deities, right? Let's continue. Starbucks is Estar, right?
Yeah, asterisk.
It's asterisk, right? So we see asterisk. We even see ball Baal, we know, because we talked about this last time, Baal goes by a new name now, and it's the Tetragrammaton. Well, let's continue.
While he is most readily associated with the Moabites, according to Judges 11 and 24, he seems to have been the national deity of the Ammonites as well. His presence in the Old Testament world was well known, as his cult was imported to Jerusalem by King Solomon, 1 Kings 11 and 7. The Hebrew scorn for his worship was evident in a curse from the scriptures, the abomination of Moab. King Josiah destroyed the Israelite branch of the cult, 2 Kings 23. Chemosh seems to have also had a taste for blood in 2 Kings 3:27.
Right? And you'll find with all these deities, the requirement is some form of sacrifice, human sacrifice, usually sacrificing of children. Right? Go on.
In 2 Kings 3:27, we find that human sacrifice was part of the rites of Chemosh. This practice, while gruesome, was certainly not unique to the Moabites, as such rites were commonplace in various Canaanite religious cults, including those of the Baals and Moloch.
Right? So Baal also requires a sacrifice, and Moloch. Let's get Moloch, because you'll find Moloch is very common in our society, floating around, especially amongst the urban community. Let's get Moloch.
Moloch. From Wikipedia, Wiki Moloch is the biblical name of a Canaanite god associated with child sacrifice through fire or war. Rabbinical traditions depicted Moloch as a brazen statue heated with fire into which the victims were thrown. This has been associated with reports by Greco-Roman authors on the child sacrifices. In Carthage, to Baal Haman, especially since archaeological excavations since the 1920s have produced evidence of child sacrifice in Carthage, as well as inscriptions including the term MLK.
Right? So anywhere where you've seen followers of Moloch, you'll find in a lot of their ceremonies or sites of their ceremonies, you'll find dead children there, bones of dead children there. Now, oh man, let's really bring this home. Because recently we've been seeing a lot of reports of dead children popping up amongst the Roman Catholic churches. So what were they doing there? They were doing child sacrifices, Moloch sacrificing. And that's the ugly truth that nobody really wants to, shine a light on. But you'll find every one of them that they're going to, and somebody says, let's just check the ground, they're finding dead bodies. So what what the mother harlot was doing, which is the Roman Catholic Church, what they were doing, they were taking the children of Israel, and they were sacrificing them to their gods. And you'll find that this same practice is still going on right before our eyes, even to this day. This is what the elites and those who rule this world, this is the religion that they follow. Right? Go on.
Either a theonym or technical term associated with sacrifice. In Interpretatio Graecia, the Phoenician god was identified with Cronus.
Right? Kronos. Anybody ever heard of Cronus? Cronus you'll hear in Greek mythology. A lot of shows, I said, you see those movies, Clash of the Titans, you'll hear of Cronus. Cronus was the god who was the father of them all and was eating all the babies. And Zeus was the one that escaped and then came back and destroyed Cronus. It's sad that I know all these things, but there's a time where we knew Greek mythology, right? But this is who Cronus is, right? Go on. Right? If you ever played a game, the god of war, you have characters in the game. Cronus is in the game, right? So these things, believe it or not, you may not have heard of them, but your children definitely have heard of these things, right? Because that's who Satan is looking to target, the next generation. Go on.
The Phoenician god was identified with Cronus, due to the parallel mythum of Cronus devouring his children.
Right? So before we get the next slide, let me ask you guys this question. Before we get the next slide, let me ask this question. Where do we see Moloch today? I mean, he gave it away. Let's get it. Let's get it. Moloch. This is where we see Moloch today. So when this famous Canadian rapper decided to take this owl and make it the symbol of his label, his clothing, and whatnot, he knew the God he was dealing with. He was dealing with Moloch. He understood this. So when your child now goes to the store now and buys a Moloch sweater, what are we involuntarily doing? Well, we're worshiping idols, but what are we? No, we're sacrificing our children to Moloch. Because we're allowing our children, see, part of sacrificing our children to Moloch is not just human sacrifice. It's also about allowing them to be used for Moloch, for Satan's agenda. So you'll see that some of them will give up their children to push the LGB and the trans, like the Wade and all of that. We see that, right? In other cases, we see where they'll put their kids to be political figures and whatnot, being used for the system who's being overseen by Satan, aka Moloch. You see what I'm saying? So these things are more common. So for the layman, we'll have the Moloch chain. We'll have the Moloch sweater. For the elites, and I wanted to incorporate this video, but you guys ever heard of Bohemian Grove?
Yeah.
Right? So we know Bohemian Grove is the place in California where the elites of this world, they go, they partake in sexual occult magic, so homosexuality and all these things. But also what they do there is they have a big shrine and they place a baby there to be burned for them now. And in the video, there's a video, Alex Jones went there, recorded a video. I have the video, it's too long to add to the files. If you want, I'll put it in the chat. But in the video, you see the baby there crying, you see an individual screaming in the fire. And as you go on, you hear an entity speaking to these people. Now, whether the entity is man, whether it's a spirit, that I can't really say. But I'm saying these people believe in these things, religiously believe in these things, and are dedicated to make sure that these ceremonies, because it's really in these ceremonies where they get that information on the next steps they need to take in order to bring this new world order throughout the world. This is where they get their counsels from. Right? Let's get the next slide. You want to say something there in the back?
Yeah, you check around the city also, right? They actually mark the buildings of a lot of participants.
Kyle.
You take a look in certain corners of the buildings, you see they have a miniature old right there on the top, right on the top of every building that is associated. And with their group that actually have the hierarchy of these.
Right? Even when you look at Washington, D.C.,
And all.
right? When you look at the Washington, D.C., it's constructed, when you look at it from helicopter view, it's actually constructed as an owl, right? What's the district called again? District of Columbia? District of Columbia, it's resembled as an owl. So they've incorporated these things in architect, build, all these different things they incorporate. If you ever go, even if you go downtown and look at the Parliament building, you'll see crosses, hexagons, all these things are in the brick within the building, right? Then we got one more and then we're going to go back. We just want to stay on path.
In Poland, where I was going on a trip from school,
Yeah.
we went on that cathedral, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they opened the floor, and it was shocking because there was thousands and thousands upon thousands skulls, and even in the cathedral walls was out of the skulls.
Yeah.
of people.
So you'll find that because in the Western world they try to cloak these things, but you'll find let's just say Asia Minor, Europe. These things are common. These things are known. Like for instance, when we look at how Christmas is celebrated in parts of Europe, it's actually Halloween over there. Krampus, right? If you guys look at the European version of Christmas, it's called Krampus. You got demons running around the street chasing people. That's their version of Christmas over there, right? Let me stick with the lesson. Let me take we'll take more questions or statements after. Let's continue though. And let me read the commentary. So having the inheritance, land, and oracles of the Most High still did not keep the children of Israel from worshiping and serving the gods of the Gentiles. This is something that we must pay very close attention to in the time of our awakening, that just because we have the truth doesn't mean that we can't become victims and fall away from the Most High in similar fashion, like how our ancestors did, right? And this is why we cannot be high-minded. And it is not just the commandments of idolatry and serving other gods that we must give obedience to, but we must be in compliance with all the commandments that the Most High has given us. Solomon's disobedience in regards to marrying Gentile women opened the door and led him to worshiping the Gentile gods. And because Solomon did not keep the covenant of his father, the Most High gave his kingdom to the nations or Gentiles, thus bringing the split of Israel, leaving us in this captive, oppressive state that we have experienced from then up until our present day, right? So we're still feeling the effects of the sin of Solomon. Let's get Ezekiel chapter 8, verse 3.
We're in the book of Ezekiel, chapter 8. And he put forth the form of a hand, and took me by a lock of mine head. And the Spirit lifted me up between the earth and the heaven, and brought me in the visions of God to Jerusalem, to the door of the inner gate that looketh toward the north, where was the seat of the image of jealousy, which provoketh to jealousy. And behold, the glory of God, the glory of the God of Israel was there, according to the vision that I saw in the plain. Then said he unto me, Son of man, lift up thine eyes now the way toward the north. So I lifted up mine eyes towards the north, and behold northward at the gate of the altar this image of jealousy in the entry. He said furthermore unto me, Son of man, seest thou what they do, even the great abominations that the house of Israel committeth here? That I should go far off from my sanctuary. But turn thee yet again, and thou shalt see greater abominations. And he brought me to the door of the court, and when I looked, behold, a hole in the wall. And then said he unto me, Son of man, dig now in the wall.
Right? Now, could you imagine this? Now, Ezekiel is being brought in the spirit to see all the things that his children of Israel were doing in closed doors. Right? Not openly, but secretly. And the Most High said, here, I need you to dig a hole. He digs a hole. He ends up finding a door. And I'm reading this morning, I'm saying, this is so, it's like, sci-fi-ish type of, when you're reading about it. It's like you open the door opened up to the next portal and brought him somewhere else and whatnot. And, that's just me, guys. I'm in my head with this, right? Go on. I'm reading this and I'm just seeing this and I'm saying, imagine this, right? Go on.
Picking up from verse 8. Then said he unto me, Son of man, dig now in the wall. And when I had digged in the wall, behold a door. And he said unto me, Go in, and behold the wicked abominations that they do here. So I went in and saw, and behold every form of creeping thing, and abominable beast, and all the idols of the house of Israel, portrayed upon the wall round about. And there stood before them 70 men of the ancients of the house of Israel. And in the midst of them stood Jezniah, Jezaniah,
Right.
the son of Shaphan.
Now remember, this is the temple. This is the place where the Holy Spirit we used to dwell one time. Right? This is the place where they have the Holy of the Holies behind the tent. Behind the curtains. Right? Where the two arks and the cup, all of that's there. But yet, through the Spirit, when Ezekiel went there, he saw all creepy beasts and all creeping things. So what did he saw? He saw that the temple was defiled. That there was unclean entities operating within the temple, as well as the idols. Go on.
Jezaniah, the son of Shaphan, with every man his censer in his hand, and a thick cloud of incense went up. Then said he unto me, Son of man, hast thou seen what the ancients of the house of Israel do in the dark, every man in the chambers of his imagery? For they say, The Lord seeth us not. The Lord hath forsaken the earth. He said also unto me,
Right? The Lord has forsaken the earth. So what did these men do? These men lost hope in the Most High and now was looking for a substitute, looking for another God. They lost faith in the Most High. Most High, he's abandoned the earth. Therefore, you know what? Let's go serve another God. Because clearly we need a God. Like one of the thing that, the ancient world understood, they understood gods and the importance of worship and that they were governed. Every aspect of life was governed by a God. So in ancient civilization, you had nations that would worship this God for rain, this God for fertility, this God where the children of Israel, we worship one God, understanding that all these things came from him. So they were very in tune with the worship. They said, you know what? The Most High has abandoned us. We need another God. And they went, like the harlot, and start worshiping another God. Right? Go on.
He said also unto me, Turn thee yet again, and thou shalt see greater abominations that they do. Then he brought me to the door of the gate of the Lord's house, which was toward the north, and behold, there sat women weeping for Tammuz.
Right? Are the women still weeping for Tammuz?
Yes.
They still spend 40 days weeping for Tammuz. But who do they think they're weeping for? They think they're weeping for Jesus, for Christ. Well, you guys understand, I use the Roman name there. But they believe in their mind that they're weeping for the Lord. And they've been deceived in involuntary worship of another God because that practice came from weeping for Tammuz. And if they would read the Bible, they would be able to draw that comparison. But this is, in a lot of cases, a lot of churches say, stay away from the Old Testament. Right? Go on.
Verse 15. Then said he unto me, Hast thou seen this, O son of man? Turn thee yet again, and thou shalt see greater abominations than these.
Go on.
And he brought me into the inner court of the Lord's house, and behold, at the door of the temple of the Lord, between the porch and the altar, were about 25 men, with their backs toward the temple of the Lord, and their faces toward the east, and they worshiped the sun toward the east.
Now let me make a disclaimer. This is why I tell brothers, when we say that, we say we're facing Jerusalem. Going back to Solomon's prayer. But these men were facing, what were they doing? What worship were they doing? Sun worship. They were facing the sun. Right? Now, are men still unknowingly worshiping the sun?
Yes. It's on the church, yeah.
Right? Now, how do we know that? Well, we know, according to history, it was Constantine who made a decree, made it law, for us to get away from keeping the Sabbath and for us to now worship the day of the sun, which is Sunday. So this practice of sun worship, and this is for those that have been deceived. But you have people openly that know, say, okay, nah, man, we worship the sun because guess what? Without the sun, we're dead. So they've been fooled as well. Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm going to say ignorance doesn't make you a bliss. Is that the same? Ignorance, there's we can't use our ignorance because all will be judged by law. Right? Now, at the same time, this is what I can say. There's a time I used to teach Sunday. You see what I'm saying? A lot of us, where do you think we came from? We came out of those same institutions. You see what I'm saying? But it was having a desire to serve the true living God, where eventually the Most High pulled us to see things for what they really are. So it's not a knock as, that, because we all started somewhere. You see what I'm saying? But the Most High was able to take us from there, same way how He took Abraham from what he was dealing with, and bring him to serve Him. They don't know. But this is why the Bible says, be not deceived. You see what I'm saying? People will be deceived. The question is are we willing to examine ourselves to see whether or not we've been deceived? And you'll find that a lot of people are not willing to do that. Why? Because they say it in their head, we're saved already. We're saved. I'm going to say some pastors know. Some pastors know. And choose to fear man more than the Most High. Because sometimes what comes with that is the fact, in order to serve the Most High, you may have to lose everything. Are you willing to do that? A lot of them are not willing to do that. You see what I'm saying? You have some pastors that don't know and are looking for the truth, and once they get that, they'll bring that to their congregation, because I've also seen it as well. But you have a lot of them where I've spoken to pastors who was like, yeah, we know Christmas is pagan, but guess what? It's the one day in the year where we can get people into the church. And they'll tell you that straight up. So we'll use a lie in order to do good, or for an opportunity to do good. But think about it. Has that been working throughout the years? Do we see these people who come once a year during Christmas and New Year's? Do we see them after that? No. Right? Let me get the rest after, because I want to go through the lesson. I have to go through the lesson.
One quick precept.
Go on.
So one quick precept just to answer your question about, are they to be blamed? If you go into Wisdom of Solomon 13 and read all the way down to verse 1 to 9. To summarize, it talks about how men know so much about the world. They know so much about, the functions of the earth, right? So for time's sake, I'm just going to read verses 7 to 9.
Sorry, brother, what chapter?
Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 13. For being conversant in his works, they search him diligently and believe their sight, because the things are beautiful that are seen. Howbeit, neither are they pardoned. For if they were able to know so much that they could aim at the world, how did they not sooner find out the Lord thereof?
Right? Now how much, and this is for people that don't even have the book. You have the book. You should be in the book reading. The problem of us, especially in this new generation, we don't want to read no more. We want everything to be read to us. You see what I'm saying? So we want spoon-fed Christianity. We got to be like the Bereans. The Bereans, everything I'm saying, the Bereans would go back and investigate it and check it out, confirm it for themselves. That's the mindset. That's, the Bible tells us, test every spirit. This is how we test them, according to the word of the Most High. You know what I mean? So they will not be excused. They probably will get less of a punishment than somebody who's here and knows the fullness of the truth. But nonetheless, everybody will be held accountable. Right? Let's continue though.
So picking up from verse 17. Then he said unto me, Hast thou seen this, O son of man? It is a light thing to the house of Judah that they commit the abominations which they commit here. For they have filled the land with violence, and have returned to provoke me to anger. And lo, they put the branch to their nose. Therefore will I also deal in fury. Mine eye shall not spare, neither will I have pity. And though they cry in mine ears with a loud voice, yet will I not hear them.
All right, let's get the next god, or Tammuz. And he goes by another name as well. Let's get it.
Dumazid, later known by the alternate form Tammuz, is an ancient Mesopotamian god associated with shepherds, who was also the primary consort of the goddess Inanna, also known as Ishtar. In Sumerian mythology, Dumazid's sister was Gestahana, the goddess of agriculture, fertility, and dream interpretation. In the Sumerian kings list, Dumazid is listed as an antediluvian king of the city of Bath Dabira.
Right, so you see that they would go to Tammuz for agriculture and whatnot. Like each god they would have a function and a purpose, right? We understand that the Most High is in control of everything, and that's the only person we go to, right? Keep on going though.
And also an early king of the city of Uruk. And in addition to being the god of shepherds, Dumazid was also an agriculture deity associated with the growth of plants.
Right, so, I'm going to say other gods have the same characteristics, but we see Tammuz being primarily worshipped on those who partake in Lent, right? Because I know I was talking about the 40 days crying for Tammuz. Some people may not know what that is. Well, you see churches that hold Lent during the time of Easter, really Lent, thank you. This is really what they're participating in. It's the worship of Tammuz, right? The ancient practice. Let's get some more. And we're going to go Acts chapter 19, verse 21.
So we're in the book of Acts 19, verse 21. After these things were ended, Paul purposed in the Spirit, when he had passed through Macedonia and Achaia, to go to Jerusalem, saying, after I have been there, I must also see Rome. So he sent into Macedonia 2 of them that ministered unto him, Timotheus and Erastus. But he himself stayed in Asia for a season. And the same time there arose no small stir about the way. For a certain man named Demetrius, a silversmith, which made silver shrines for Diana, brought no small gain unto craftsmen.
Right, now when it says he brought no small gain, meaning that the money they were making off of this guy making idols was big money. This was an enterprise, right? Go on.
Whom he called together with the workmen of like occupation, and said, sirs, ye know that by this craft we have our wealth.
Right, by the making of idols, sir, this is our livelihood. Right, go on.
Moreover, ye see and hear that not alone at Ephesus, but also throughout all Asia, this Paul hath persuaded and turned away much people, saying, they be no gods which are made with hands. So not only this, our craft is in danger to be set at naught, but also that the temple of the great goddess Diana should be despised.
Right, should be despised. Now, I'm highlighting this, and I'm going to show you why this is so important. You see, the truth for this world, and this is why the world is against this truth. This truth is really and truly the only thing to free us from this prison that they have constructed with all these fallen angels, demons, and all these things. This truth is the only thing to free us. And what we can see is that for Paul, for the men of the city, this craft of making idols was big business. And we see it through the holy days. The holy days, think about it. How much money is made during Christmas time? Easter time. You see what I'm saying? So these are money enterprise. And then on top of that, he says, hold on, not only that, but the temples are empty.
The temple of the great goddess Diana should be despised.
Should be despised. What are we seeing in the majority of the churches right now? They're becoming empty. Why? Because the truth now is starting to resonate, and people are leaving church, their home church, in order to find this truth. And all the churches are looking at this and saying, hold on here. They're messing up our money. Real talk. So from a financials, from, those that are, have stores, sell the ornaments and all those things, they're looking at it and say, hold on, people ain't buying Christmas tree like how they used to buy Christmas. Black people ain't buying Christmas tree like they used to buy Christmas. What's going on? Especially when they know our buying power. We like to buy. We might not save, but we like to buy. So when we stop buying, it really moves. Hold on, what's going on here? You see what I'm saying? So they're looking at it like, hold on, we're losing money here. The churches now are looking at it and saying, hold on. If it's not the pews they're looking at, you know what else they're looking at? They're looking at the tithes. Tithes them look short this week. I'm being real. And I'm talking about the most, you have some of them that are real bad with the tithe thing. Like, only come down if you have $2,000. $1,000 prayer line. If you don't have $1,000, nope. I didn't even want to see you. You see what I'm saying? But I'm just saying, we've seen that, we've witnessed that. But they're looking at their pockets and saying, hold on, things is getting tight around here. So you know what they're doing? What do you think they're doing? They're having meetings. How are we going to deal with the Israelites then? How are we going to deal with this truth? Same thing that these men are saying. How are we going to deal with this truth? Because it's affecting our pockets. And this is the threat that this truth has on this world. From a financial standpoint, from being spiritual free, breaking all the chains, from Satan losing his control. This is what this is all about. Because you think Satan wants to give up his dominion? No. He wants to keep us in prison as long as we can be in prison. And we were designed to be those to set the captive free. That's what we were designed for. Children of Israel were designed to bring forth this light and make it shine throughout the four corners of the earth. Right? Go on.
When we read verse 25, as Deacon said, the pastors coming together, it does say that whom he called together with the workmen of like occupation and said, sirs, you know that by this craft we have our wealth. Continuing from verse 27, so that not only this our craft is in danger to be set at naught, but also that the temple of the great goddess Diana should be despised, and her magnificence should be destroyed, whom all Asia and the world worshipeth. And when they heard these things, they were full of wrath, and cried out, saying, Great is Diana of the Ephesians. And the whole city was filled with confusion, and have caught Gaius and Aristarchus, men of Macedonia, Paul's companions in travel. They rushed with one accord into the theater. And when Paul would have entered in unto the people, the disciples suffered him not. And certain of the chiefs of Asia, which were his friends, sent unto him, desiring him that he would not adventure himself into the theater. Some therefore cried one thing, and some another, for the assembly was confused, and the more part knew not, wherefore they were come together. And they drew Alexander of the multitude of the Jews, putting him forward, and Alexander beckoned with the hand, and would have made his defense unto the people. But when they knew that he was a Jew, all with one voice, about the space of 2 hours cried out, Great is Diana of the Ephesians. And when the town clerk had appeased the people, he said, Ye men of Ephesus, what man is there that knoweth not how that the city of the Ephesians is a worshipper of the great goddess Diana, and of the image which fell down from Jupiter?
Right? So they said, in this city, I don't know about y'all over there, you Jews over there, but here, around here, we keep the worship of Diana. Now, what you'll find, and let's read Diana, because what you find is Diana is still being worshipped to this day. Not really amongst the black churches, I'm going to say, but Diana is still being worshipped today. Let's get it?
Diana, in the Wikipedia. Diana is a Roman goddess of the hunt, the moon, and nature, associated with wild animals and woodland. She is equated with the Greek goddess Artemis and absorbed much of Artemis mythology early in Roman history, including a birth on the island of Delos to parents Jupiter and Lethona, and a twin brother, Apollo. Though she had an independent origin in Italy, Diana was known as a virgin goddess of childbirth
Hold
and
on,
woman.
this is what's gonna give away Diana right now. Read that part again. Who's Diana? The who? So who is she today? Diana is Mary. Now I have a book and I forgot to bring it. It's called the Dark Side of Christian History by Ellen Ellenberg. I've used this book several times. I forgot to bring that book and I had another book. And basically in that book, what I like about it is they go through the history and show you the things that they don't tell you what was going on during the Roman Catholic Church, its infancy. Now, what they did, so what Constantine did, Constantine understanding, seeing the effect that the gospel was having in the Roman Empire, realized that in order for us to stop this, because we can't beat this, the only way to stop this is if we control this. So Constantine came up with a political game or political plan to merge Christianity into paganism and make paganism and Christianity one thing. So it was really through Constantine that because the people of Rome, some of them didn't want to give up their Christmas, didn't want to give up their celebrations, because what was happening when the first church made this stand, they were doing these things underground, closed doors. But eventually the desires of the people outweighed, and he was like, no. We're incorporating all of these things into it. So what they did, so that's what Constantine did. He first made it legal to merge the two, right, in order to control Christianity from a political standpoint, as well as he weaponized it as well. Now, what started to happen was one of the bishops, one of the popes, should I say, he made a decree, and all the Diana temples were now turned into Mary temples, right? The worshiping of Mary and this new virgin deity, right? So all the temples, even the Vatican building itself, which was known to be a big Jupiter and Diana temple, was now converted to represent Mary and this holy child Jesus. And a lot of people don't know these histories. Those places are built on pagan shrines, right? Even the statue that they always show you, and they say it's Peter. You guys know that you know what it is? Zeus, aka Jupiter. That now they're presenting, this is Peter, guys. No. Right? Let's continue.
Diana was known as a virgin goddess of childbirth and women from the medieval to the modern period, as folklore attached to her developed and was eventually adapted into neo-pagan religions. The mythology surrounding Diana grew to include a consort, Lucifer, and a daughter, Aradia.
Right? So Lucifer is really her husband. But I'm going to say this. In the black churches, you really don't see people saying we're worshiping Mary. You don't really see that. Where do we see that, though, amongst the children of Israel? The 10 tribes, right? The northern kingdom. So you go from Gad all the way down to South America. You see a statue cries. That place is holy ground now. You know what I'm saying? A statue, and we don't even know if somebody put the water there. But nonetheless, you'll see they will be there worshiping. South America is the only place where I see they'll walk down the street with a statue of Jesus, and you'll see crowds following that statue, Showing you they got a zeal for the Most High, just not according to knowledge. Right? So this thing, it may not be affecting the southern kingdom as much, but definitely the northern kingdom is plagued with worshiping of Diana, a.k.a. Mary. Let's continue. Let's get Jupiter.
Jupiter in the Wikipedia. Jupiter, thus father of sky, also known as Jove.
Jovi.
Jovi. Salaki.
So you know how sometimes you hear Elder Rakari always say, Jovi, Jovi. You guys heard him say that sometimes, right? This is what he's talking about. Because, and I had another book. Couldn't bring all my books today. But I have a book, it's called the Edom, the God of Edom. And in this book, what the person's trying to do, it's hilarious when you think about it. He's trying to show that the God that Edom served was the same God as the children of Israel. And we know from a biblical perspective that's not the case. But his argument's very compelling because he says, well, you know, they were both raised up under the same father. Isaac was their father. Right? And they all spoke the same language, same culture, you know, they were raised up in the same culture. But then later on he goes down and shows that Jovi is Jupiter, who is also Jehovah. And that's the link that he's putting Jehovah with the children of Israel, because we know according to Jehovah would have been the God over the children of Israel. But for somebody who knows better and understands the name that was given to Abraham was Ahiah, not Jehovah, and how Lucifer said he would be like the Most High when you read Isaiah chapter, 14, verse 12? Right? When you read that, we understand his plan was to eventually be worshipped like the God of all gods. So when this author is trying to show Jupiter, which is Jovi, which is also Jehovah, I realized what he was really doing. He was showing that all those gods are really the same God. Jehovah, Jovi, and thing are really the same God. And this is why you find in the Vatican, they got the Tetragrammaton too. And in fact, in the Vatican, behind the closed doors, you know what they got behind the closed doors? They got the Black Mary, right? They got what do they call it again? The Black Madonna. Tammuz and his lady Ashereth or Ishtar, right? Who they posed as Jesus and Mary. They got that in the back room, and that's what they're worshiping. Let's continue, though.
Jupiter, also known as Jovi, is a god of the sky and thunder and the king of gods in ancient Roman religion and mythology. Jupiter was a chief deity of Roman state religion throughout the Republican and imperial eras, until Christianity became the dominant religion of the empire.
All right? So until Christianity became the dominant, but we know the truth, and according to history, this was just a cloak to mask the paganism and the idols that came from these religions. Now to mask them into Christianity, right? Because when you look at Easter, which is actually Estar, this is why, for some it's the resurrection. But for them it was the resurrection of the sun deity. Going from the winter solstice, so when the sun dies, to when the sun would be resurrected. Not the S-O-N, but the S-U-N. So they understood what they were doing, right? But for the masses, we think we're celebrating Christ. But on Sunday, we believe we're worshiping the resurrection of Christ. But by Monday, those Easter eggs are coming on out, bouncing up and down the house. And those Easter eggs really show you the origin of what it really is, because eggs and rabbits link into fertility. You ever heard that saying, you guys have babies like rabbits? This is where that saying comes from. But the whole ideal is that you always find there's an attachment to something pagan practices incorporated in all of these ceremonies. right? Going back, like I said, we look at Christmas, you look at the tree. Jeremiah 10 tells you about that tree that they axed down and they decked it with silver and gold. And I remember when I first read that, it hit me so hard. Why? Because I remember my mom buying a real tree and we had to screw it down in the floor. And yeah, we didn't have the gold and the silver, but I know the decorations, what color are they? Gold and silver. Poor people, gold and silver. Right? So it's the same practices. You'll find it's always there. Even when I go back to the bun and cheese, how I thought that was only a Jamaican and Caribbean, practice, only to find a Portuguese guy bringing a bun and cheese, same time I'm bringing bun and cheese to work. I say, nah, man, something's not right here. Right?
Go on.
Let's continue, though.
In Roman mythology, he negotiates with Numa Pompilius, the second king of Rome, to establish principles of Roman religion, such as offering or sacrifice. Jupiter is usually thought to have originated as an aerial god. His identifying implement in the thunderbolt, and his primary sacred animal is the eagle, which held precedence over other birds in the taking of auspice.
Right? And you'll find everywhere you find Edom, you find the eagle. Whether you go Germany, you go ancient Roman Empire, you go to America, you go to what else other civilization? They all had the eagle showing you the god they were dealing with, which was Satan. Right? Or Jove or Jupiter. Right? Let's keep on going.
And became one of the most common symbols of the Roman army.
All right, let's try to get through, because there's a few more. Let's try to get through this fast. Let me read the commentary. So, from one abomination to the next, time and time again, Israel sought out to do evil, filthiness in the sight of the Most High. We often times do what we want to do, thinking that nobody will know and that it's being done in the dark. However, the eyes of the Most High are always watching and recording the wicked things that we do. We become hell-bent on our lust, serving the gods that we want to serve, all the while questioning why we are so cursed and still not being able to connect the dots to the fact that our plight is because of our disobedience. And this is the reason why Samuel told Saul that stubbornness is the same as idolatry, because one way or another, in our stubborn ways against the Most High, we are serving another God. Let's get 2 Maccabees chapter 6, verse 1.
2 Maccabees chapter 6, verse 1. Not long after this, the king sent an old man of Athens to compel the Jews to depart from the laws of their fathers, and not to live after the laws of God, and to pollute also the temple in Jerusalem, and to call it the temple of Jupiter, Olympus.
Right, so they wanted us during the time of the Greek Empire, they wanted us to rename the Most High's temple and call it the temple of who?
Jupiter, Olympus.
Jupiter, Olympus. Does that term sound familiar? Olympus? The Olympics? Right? So even today, we still have these games that are dedicated to the gods. The Olympics. Right? And the sad thing about it is that we go into these games looking for opportunity, looking to make our name for ourselves and whatnot, but we don't understand that involuntarily we're partaking in a game dedicated to the fallen gods. Right? That's the origin of the Olympics. Let's continue.
And that in Gerizim of Jupiter, the defender of strangers, as they did desire that dwelt in the place. The coming in of this mischief was sore and grievous to the people. For the temple was filled with rioting and reveling by the Gentiles, and dallied with harlots, and had to do with women within the circuit of the holy places, and besides that brought in things that were not lawful.
Right? So not only did they bring in their idols into the temple, they brought their practices within the temple as well. And a lot of that was sex rituals. And imagine all these things are going on in the temple dedicated to the Most High. We understand how much of a sacred and holy place that was supposed to be, right? Let's fast forward though, and let's get Mercury, or let's get some of the gods that were there. Let's get, Dionysus?
Dionysus. Dionysus is the god.
Oh, sorry. Let's go back for a second. Because I want to get verse 6 and 7.
Okay. So going to 2 Maccabees chapter 6, jump into verse 6 to 7. Neither was it lawful for a man to keep the Sabbath days or ancient feasts, or to profess himself to all to be a Jew.
Right? So all the things that were pleasing unto the Most High, they eventually made it where it was outlawed. You cannot do anything of that nature. You can only just serve the gods that the idols that we're dealing with. Right? Go on.
And in the day of the king's birth, every month, they were brought by bitter constraint to eat of the sacrifices. And when the feast of Bacchus was kept, the Jews were compelled to go in procession to Bacchus, carrying ivy.
Right? So they would go in and they would worship the god they were forced to worship the god called Bacchus. Right? And for a lot of people that are saying, hold on, I heard that name before, Deacon. Let's get the god though.
Dionysus is the god of grape harvest, winemaking and wine, of fertility, ritual madness, religious ecstasy.
Religious ecstasy, right? Now, where do we see some of this religious ecstasy? Well, hold on. You guys are putting the cart before the horse. Because before we get to Bacchus's big events, let's go to some of his smaller events. So where do we see people out of the spirit, in a frenzy, in religious practices? Thank you. Right? Now, I'm not saying all of it, but, you have some people on the floor in convulsions and they're saying they're under a spirit. They're under a spirit. Spirit's identified as the spirit of Bacchus. Right? Not the Holy Spirit, but it's a different spirit. But they're definitely under a spirit. So Bacchus comes out amongst churches every now and then. And you have somebody possessed under the spirit and they're shaking and, doing all of that. And, when we look at that in the Bible, we identify that with demon possession. But nowadays we identify it as he caught the spirit. Right? The narrative has switched. Go on though.
Dionysus, religious ecstasy and theater in ancient Greek religion and myth. He is also known as Bacchus, the name adopted by the Romans, and the frenzy he induces in Bacchia, his thyrosis, sometimes wound with ivy and dripping with honey, is both a beneficent wand and a weapon used to destroy those who oppose his cult, and the freedoms he represents. As Eleutheros, the liberator, his wine, music, and ecstatic dance frees his followers from self-conscious.
Right? So let's look at all these things. Right? So, drunkenness. Right? And I'm going to say this because it says here at the top, wine or fertility. There's a part where it said madness. Induces madness. Read that part again.
Yeah. So Bacchus, the name adopted by the Romans, and the frenzy he induces in Bacchia, his thyrosis, sometimes wound with ivy and dripping with honey, is both a beneficent wand and a weapon used to destroy those who oppose his cult and the freedoms he represents.
Right? Now, let me just get to the point that I'm making here. So any area where there's excessiveness of partying, drunkenness, You know, some of us that used to go dance every weekend, Friday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Monday, we're in a dance. You'll find Bacchus is there. He's there operating, right? Anywhere where people are drunk and excited and, they want to fight and all of that, he's operating in the mix, right? And this is where drunkenness, keeping away from the spirit of drunkenness, because it really opens you up to the spirit of Bacchus, right? Now, Bacchus has an event coming up, and I'm hoping none of us go. But for those that don't know, in the islands, what do they call it in the islands? Carnival. Bacchanal, and, it's funny because all on the radio, when you come into the truth, right? And you start learning about these things. And then you're on the radio, Bacchanala, Bacchanala. You guys know the song, right? And you're hearing that, you're like, oh, this is what we used to be dancing up to, right? I mean, think about it. We used to dance up in the Bacchus parade. I think all of us went to the Bacchus parade once in our lifetimes, right? If you've been to Carabana, you've been to a Bacchus parade before. If you went to Trinidad or any other islands for Carnival time, you went to a Bacchus celebration. And in the islands, they tell you what it is. This is Bacchanal. They tell you, Bacchanal, which comes from the word Bacchus. They know. They might not know the God they're dealing with, but they definitely are in tune with that name. Only us up here, born in Canada or raised in Canada, Carnival, right? But the real name is Bacchanal, right? So, as I said, these things, there's nothing new under the sun. They're still doing it to this day, right? Let's go continue.
His wine, music, and ecstatic dance free his followers from self-conscious fear and care, and subvert the oppressive restraints of the powerful. Those who partake of his mysteries are believed to become possessed and empowered by the God himself.
Right? You get possessed. So when you open up yourself to Bacchus, you get possessed with this. Right? And if you're someone around him, this is why he said, yo, we got to dance upon everything tonight. Right? Let me stop. Right? But I'm saying this spirit, you open up yourself to the spirit, this spirit can't get enough. This spirit will keep you energized throughout the whole of the night of Carabana. It'll be on every flow. And you know how we used to do? We used to jump up on the floor, dance for one girl, switch, dance on the next one. No. We are opened up to these spirits. Right? It's the reality of the fact of the matter.
Come on.
Right? Let's get Acts chapter 14, verse 8.
We're in the book of Acts chapter 14, verse 8. And there sat a certain man of Lystra, impotent in his feet, being a cripple from his mother's womb, who never had walked. The same heard Paul speak, who steadfastly beholding him, and perceiving that he had faith to be healed, said with a loud voice, Stand upright on thy feet. And he leapt and walked. And when the people saw what Paul had done, they lifted up their voices, saying in speech of the Lysonian, The gods are come down to us in the likeness of men. And they called Barnabas Jupiter, and Paul Mercurius, because he was the chief speaker. Then the priests of Jupiter, which was before their city, brought oxen and garlands unto the gates, and would have done sacrifice with the people, which when the apostle Barnabas and Paul heard of, they rent their clothes and ran in among the people, crying out, and saying, Sirs, why do you these things? We are also men of like passions with you, and preach unto you that you should turn from these vanities unto the living God, which made heaven and earth, and the sea, and all things that are therein, who in times past suffered all nations to walk in their own ways. Nevertheless, he left not himself without witness, in that he did good, and gave us rain from heaven.
Right, so even though the other nations were dealing with other gods and whatnot, the Most High is saying, okay, I allowed you guys for that time. But now, it's time everything gets in line. This whole earth gets in line with worshiping me. Why? Because when it's all said and done, the kingdom of heaven will be established on earth. And as it is in heaven, so shall it be in earth. So eventually, the Most High is getting everybody and everything in order. First starting with the children of Israel, but eventually with the nations as well. Right? And this is where the responsibility falls on us to teach them. Because for some of them, these pagan practices, these idols that they've been serving, they go back to generations upon generations upon generations. These things are so ingrained traditionally, mentally, all these different things, where to pull them out of it is it's a stronghold. It's a battle. Right? Go on.
Verse 17. Nevertheless, he left not himself without witness, in that he did good and gave us rain from heaven and fruitful seasons, filling our hearts with food and gladness. And with these sayings scarce restrained they, the people, that they had not done sacrifice unto them.
All right, let's get Mercury, no?
Mercury from the Wikipedia. Mercury is a major god in Roman religion and mythology, being one of the 12 Consentes within the ancient Roman pantheon. He is a god of financial gain, commerce, eloquence, messages, communications including divination, travelers, boundaries, luck, trickery, and thieves.
Right? So if you want some money, for them it's if you want some money, go check Mercury. Right? If you want to be trickery, check Mercury. Right? Now, I never really spent the time to see how Mercury is being incorporated today in the world. But when it's all said and done, they always find a way.
Yeah.
So one of the ways that I know that we were taught of Mercury growing up was, well, Mercury is one of the planets. Right? We have a planet named Mercury. Mm-hmm. Now what you'll find is that all the planets are actually named after deities. Right? So even, and I talked about this in time past, even the days of the week, they were named after all deities and gods, right? But the planets itself were actually named after the wandering stars. So when you read Jude and it says wandering stars? Well, when you type in the word wandering stars and planets, they give you Jupiter, Venus, Neptune. They give you all the planets that we were taught of in school. Why? Because in ancient Roman mythology, these planets or these gods, they were worshipped. Right? Now they've just incorporated them in, we'll have, horoscopes, we'll have this, all these things were incorporated, but it leads you back to idol worship. Right?
And now when you also look at Mercury, right? When you said how is it implemented, I thought about TED Talks. Right? And a lot of these motivational speakers, and their message is always on commerce and gain, because it says here that this God is about gain, financial gain, commerce, but also eloquency in their speech. And I look at a lot of these TED Talks, and I have family who they're trying to seek the Most High, but whenever they implement things in their life, they always go back to some motivational speaker.
Okay.
Right? About what? Gain.
Okay. Right? So through our fall and captivity, we have began giving religions. Through our fall and captivity, we have been given religion, the ways of the Gentiles, and have worshipped their gods as if they were the Most High himself. During the ministry, the apostles did many miraculous works in Christ's name. The Gentiles and Hellenists mistook the apostles as the Greek and Roman gods because of these miracles, and looked to offer sacrifice to their gods. In the same manner that Paul and Barnabas were able to correct the errors of the people of that time for the customs, traditions, and practices towards pagan gods. We must do the same now for our people who have been spread to the four corners of the earth and fallen under the same conditions, right? So for many of us, our job now is the same way how somebody taught us that all the things we were doing thinking it was pleasing to the Most High is not pleasing to the Most High. All these traditions that we've picked up over time that we thought were of righteousness It's our job to enlighten the people, to let them know the origins of these practices, and to show them that they're actually the farthest thing away from the Most High. In fact, the Bible even speaks against these practices. That becomes our job. Because as we can see, everybody has fallen, has drunk in this wine of deceit, have drunk in this wine of ignorance that the Roman Catholic Church has pumped out like Kool-Aid. Right? You guys, any of you guys watched that movie recently? I think I used it to throw in this movie. That movie, they cloned.
Oh, they cloned Tyrone?
They cloned Tyrone. You guys, anybody watch it? Oh man, you need to watch that. But in everything, what you find is that the whole, what we call the black experience, and I've been talking about this, it really has been controlled and orchestrated. And you'll find that a lot of things, like going back how I thought the one was our thing, you'll find that a lot of these things we adopted in captivity through slavery. So a lot of the practices that we actually thought was ours, or what we call culture, and this is part of being, Jamaica or Canada or US and whatnot, you'll find that we picked up these things through our captors. And who we think we are, or what we think we've created, no. There was puppet masters pulling the strings all this time. Right? You want to say something?
What I found interesting about they called Tyrone,
Yeah.
Jamie Foxx is the executive producer. So I don't want to speculate,
Yeah.
but we know he's been sick, and the fact that if anyone hasn't seen it, I would just said watch it.
Yeah.
But I had to sit there in disbelief, like how mockery of our community, and to know that Jamie Foxx being an executive producer, for him to expose that too, and then he gets sick. Again, I don't want to speculate.
You gotta mute those ones. Go on. It's online. Someone online. Yeah. So that is an entity. They're here. Well, go on, sis. Go on.
I don't want to speculate, but I think, we know a lot of our, the Bill Cosby's and the Michael Jackson, when they try to either expose something or when they try to, produce movies like that, something happens to them, right? So I just leave it there, speculation, but I just, when I saw the credits and I saw Jamie Foxx as the executive producer along with this movie and got sick, and I was just like, wow.
No, it's definitely if you have eyes to see, you can see that, we're going into a different topic here, but it touches on it because you really just see the control and the fact that while they're controlling it, they're actually standing back observing it as well. And what you find is not necessarily the whole idea of the cloning part. It's the fact that you'll find in every area, they have all these control figures. And the control figures is the pastors, it's the pimps, it's the drug dealers. These are the things that they constantly reproduce in order to keep societies stagnant or without any growth, or better yet, leading them back. Let me bring back to the lesson. Leading them back into this spiritual fornication of idolatry, right? And that's what you'll find within that movie, which is so deep, so powerful. I like to just do a lesson on the movie itself. But what they were putting in the food to make people love chicken, what they were putting in the hair products when sisters are permanent hair, what they're putting in the music to control the masses and make us violent within the music. All these different elements they touch on within this show, right? So you can find it on Netflix. I'm not a spokesman, so let me go back to the actual lesson. And let's get Wisdom of Solomon. And we're almost done, guys. We've got a few more scriptures, and then we're gonna close on up. Let's go on.
Wisdom of Solomon 13, verse 1. Surely vain are all men by nature, who are ignorant of God, and could not out of the good things that are seen know him, that is, neither by considering the works did they acknowledge the workmaster, but deemed either fire or wind, or swift air, or the circle of the stars, or the violent water, or the lights of heaven to be gods which govern the world, with whose beauty, if they being delighted, took them to be gods, let them know how much better the Lord of them is, for the first author of beauty hath created them. But if they were astonished at their power and virtue, let them understand by them how much mightier he is that made them. For by the greatness and beauty of the creatures, proportionably the maker of them is seen. But yet for this they are less to be blamed, for they peradventure err, seeking God, and desirous to find him. For being conversant in his works, they search him diligently, and believe their sight, because the things that are beautiful that are seen. Howbeit, neither are they to be pardoned. For if they were able to know so much that they could aim at the world, how did they not sooner find out the Lord thereof? But miserable are they, and in dead things is their hope, who call them gods, which are the works of men's hands, gold and silver, the show art in.
Right? And you'll find all these religions have some form of wood, stone, some type of thing attached to their worship, some type of figure attached to their worship, all of them. Right? Go on.
And resemblance of beast, or a stone good for nothing, the work of an ancient hand.
Right? And we used to wonder why we were miserable for years serving these idols of wood and some of stone. Right? Let's get 1 Chronicles chapter 16, verse 23.
1 Chronicles chapter 16, verse 23. Sing unto the Lord, all the earth. Show forth from day to day his salvation. Declare his glory among the heathen.
Right? And let me stop there for a second. Now, the reality is, if we were outside, because living in the city, living in the city, we're so, what's the word? Saturated with not being in touch with nature, right? Like, we think about tabernacles, and one of the things about tabernacles, we leave out, even though we ain't going far, we go far enough out the city where we can actually get away from the lights and actually see the stars. We'll just look up in the stars and see the stars. But the reality is if you are able just take some time out and just look at nature, you'll realize that everything is governed by law. Everything has to follow the decree. So what do I mean by this? Well, the sun religiously has to get up and has to set and has to follow his course. Like the Bible says, he rides the chariot throughout the sky. He has to do that. The moon also has to come out. But you see, by time, she's every now and then she does her own thing. And that's written up in the law as well. But by the time it's sunset, she has to go back in her hide and then the sun has to go out. So they have to follow rules and regulations. Same thing with the sea. The sea can't pass the seashore because it's decreed in law that it can't pass the seashore unless it's commanded by the Most High to pass the seashore. So everything is governed. Even when you look at birds, how do you think the birds know, say, okay, it's wintertime, we got to go here and we got to migrate somewhere else? Everything is governed by law. How do the trees, right? And we know not all trees do it, but how do the trees say, okay, you know what? Wintertime, let's shake off some of our old leaves. So while majority of trees do that, there's also other trees that say, we're going to hold on to ours. How do they know that? You guys know what trees I'm talking about, right? The pine trees, right? They don't shed, or they don't lose their leaves. But every other tree says, no, according to the law, we gotta get rid of the leaves. So everything is governed by law. And if you can sit back, and this is how Abraham understood, and you guys were here when we read it, or in another lesson, this is where Abraham was just by studying, observing the sun, the moon, everything, and seeing how it operated, said, no, there has to be someone greater who's calling the shots here. That's the God I want to know, right? But if you ever do that, you'll see everything, even time itself, because the Bible tells you about the law of lesser lights, more day, what they call daylight savings. The Bible tells you that during the wintertime, each day, as you get closer to the winter, you're losing a percentage of light. Once you understand the law of it and you watch it and you say, hold on, it's right on cue. So creation itself is in sync with the Most High and follows the Most High's law. The only thing that rebels against the Most High is man. That's the only thing. Let's continue though. Let's bring it home.
So 1 Chronicles chapter 16, picking up from the beginning. Sing unto the Lord, all the earth. Show forth from day to day his salvation. Declare his glory among the heathen, his marvelous works among all nations. For great is the Lord, and greatly to be praised. He is also to be feared above all gods. For all the gods of the people are idols, but the Lord made the heavens. Glory and honor are in his presence. Strength and gladness are in his place. Give unto the Lord, ye kindreds of the people. Give unto the Lord glory and strength. Give unto the Lord the glory due unto his name. Bring an offering and come before him. Worship the Lord in the beauty of holiness. Fear before him all the earth. The world also shall be stable, that it be not moved. Let the heavens be glad, and let the earth rejoice. And let men say among the nations, the Lord reigneth.
And let men say amongst the nations, the Lord reigns. The only way they're going to do that is when they realize the things that they call gods are nothing but dumb idols. And that's our responsibility, right? Let's continue though. Let's get Psalms chapter 95, verse 1 to 6. And then we'll get the last scripture. 1 Corinthians.
Psalms chapter 95, verse 1. O come, let us sing unto the Lord. Let us make a joyful noise to the rock of our salvation. Let us come before his presence with thanksgiving, and make a joyful noise unto him with psalms. For the Lord is a great God, and a great King above all gods. In his hand are the deep places of the earth. The strength of the hills is his also. The sea is his, and he made it, and his hands formed the dry land. O come, let us worship and bow down. Let us kneel before the Lord our Maker.
Let's get 1 Corinthians chapter 8. Let's get 1 to 6.
1 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 1. Now, as touching things offered unto idols, we know that we all have knowledge. Knowledge puffeth up, but charity edifieth. And if any man think that he knoweth anything, he knoweth nothing, yet as he ought to know. But if any man love God, the same is known of him. As concerning therefore the eating of those things that are offered in the sacrifice unto idols.
Right? So the children of Israel during the time of Paul, they understood that the things that the Gentiles were offering, that they were offering it to devils, to idols. Right? They understood this. And for a lot of this reason, a lot of people didn't want to buy their meats from the supermarket, didn't want to buy their meats from the other nation. Right? Because they understood that we weren't supposed to eat anything that was sacrificed to a different god. But we also know that Israel would be scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, and through that captivity of being scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, we would have to go to the enemies for everything. Everything. What you eat, what you buy, you want a house, you got to go to the bank, you got to speak to them, please give me a loan, for everything. So the Most High understood this. And this is why when you continue to read, Paul says, therefore, go to the shambles, buy what you want, asking no question for conscience sakes. Right? Because one of the things we understand is that the God that we serve, these idols have no control, no power, but the God that we serve made the heaven and the earth and everything that is in it. So therefore, by us praying over our food, by us serving him in dominion, these Gentiles could do whatever they want, but it has no power over the righteous. Right? And that's really the mindset, that as long as we serve the Most High, the God of Israel, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, these spirits have no power over us. Right? So we got to claim back that power, because we were talking about casting out serpents last week. We got to claim back that authority and understand that as long as we have the Most High and are walking in his obedience, They got no power over us, but we actually have dominion and control. I'm going to say dominion over them. And we also have the keys and the remedy to help others rid themselves from those same demons and spirits that they're suffering from. Right? So we must understand that there's only... You had more to read there?
Yeah. 3 more verses.
Go, finish up the 3 more verses.
Verse 4. As concerning, therefore, the eating of those things that are offered in sacrifice unto idols, we know that an idol is nothing in the world, and that there is no other God but one. For though there be that are called gods, whether in heaven or in earth, as there be gods many and lords many, but to us there is but one God, the Father, of whom are all things, and we in him, and the one Lord, Yeshua, the Anointed, by whom are all things, and we by him.
All right, so we must understand that there is only one God with one way, and that he is the God above all gods. There are not many paths that lead to the Creator, as some religions would want you to believe, as the world would leave you to believe. The road to the Most High is straight, narrow, and filled with much trying of our faith and patience. We have seen the choices of our ancestors to serve other gods and other ways besides the Most High and his way, and what result has yielded as we are a byproduct of the disobedience decisions our foreparents chose to make, right? So when we look at us and the condition that we are in, pretty much we're a byproduct of the choice they made to serve these other gods. Time is short, brothers and sisters. So let's continue to learn to do the Most High's way so that we truly know if we're serving him or with our actions serving the gods of the nations. With that being said, family, Shabbat Shalom.